Yeah, they're the white hats. Well, in the Church Universal Triumphant, they have these things called ascended masters, who are people who are so spiritually evolved they detach themselves from the world stage, but they're still there. You can channel them. And they've replaced channeling ascended masters with the chans, where you can get Q drops and communicate with these not ascended masters, but death fakers. It's a carbon copy. I mean, this is just basically a template religion, a template cult. Also noteworthy that the cult Universal Triumphant, now repurposed as the Church Universal Trump, it was a doomsday cult, and it led a whole lot of people into a bunker because they were worried about China and Russia dropping nukes. And the QAnoners believe in all this stuff. Space war is a huge part of their whole program, as we will get into. So I'm just pointing out that right now they are bringing up this idea that we are dealing with this second coming of Christ, that this is an ancient battle. And what's more, this George News is behind something called the Bloodlines, where they have this entire narrative about the reptilian bloodlines and the Kennedys are fighting them. So this is where you get this story with the QAnoner who supposedly stabbed his kids to death because they had reptilian DNA. There is something there. I mean, that was blamed on David Icke, but nothing about QAnon is original. Their main storyline is pretty much David Icke's storyline about the cabal, the blood drinkers, the secret aliens, and all that stuff. That is part of Q. But you could also point at other things as well. Like I said, the cult universal triumphant, this war in the deep state, it's a composite. And the basic story of Q and the role of the Kennedys in this meta script is much older anyway. I think that the Q idea that this character, the Kennedys undercover, I think it's a Kubrick construct. That's where I think it comes from. Let's see. More insane than usual, QAnon documentary claims vaccines will transfer Satan's DNA into your blood. You see? Satan's DNA, the reptoid, the snake venom. It's all there. So we'll get into this. Again, QAnon film, COVID is caused by snake venom put in the water to turn people into satanic hybrids. Like, why now? Why is this narrative suddenly coming out? And I'm just pointing it out that if you look at the head of this QAnon serpent, it's George News. It is literally George News. Let's pick up where we left off on last time. Let's see here. Pinterest bans climate misinformation. They're trying to get us used to the idea that it's also malinformation and dangerous misinformation to not believe in climate change. In other words, non-belief in the modern replacement flood myth and angry, vengeful God will get you censored. We have a state religion. We really do. All right, let me see. I'm going through some comments. Someone else had dropped a chat. I appreciate it very much. Super chats. What that does is it allows us to keep the flow no matter how much we get censored. We have like 155 people now on the text alert list, so we're always going to have a good number of people in the think tanks. Oh yeah, happy Easter's everyone. It was yesterday was Good Friday. So-called, this is an important weekend too, I believe, in North Korea. A couple years ago I was looking into this, the Day of the Sun, where you can find, you know how I'm talking about the Church Universal Triumphant being repurposed for the QAnoners. You can find similar types of templating. So in North Korea, the Day of the Sun is an annual public holiday on 15 April, which was yesterday, the birth of Kim Il-sung. So it's the birth date of their eternal president. This is just sun god dynasty stuff. So we can mock the QAnoners for their belief that the Kennedys are some kind of sun king gods on earth, but this is standard. And it's the same thing in North Korea. You ought to see their obsession with obelisks. It's almost bigger than their obsession with rockets, and it's because it's part of the same sun cult. Even the name of their leader. So you got Kim Il-sung, like the sun, eternal president, born April 15th, Easter. It's also a 3-day ceremony It's been an official holiday since 1968. His name is Korean for become the sun. And what they do here is they worship him as a son incarnate, like the Pope is the vicar of Christ, the Son in a human body. Masons do it too. They worship their worshipful master as though he were the sun. Wiccans do it too. They tend to do it with the moon and the goddess, but it's the same ceremonies. I have some books from the 60s on witchcraft where they were more open about what they were really about. And it seems like after the 60s, a lot of the witchcraft was somewhat castrated and turned towards ecofeminism. So Kim Il sung was born, and check this out. He was born on April 15th in a village. And I believe this. There was something about when he was born, a new star appeared in the sky. And I believe also that the mother of the present dictator was born on Christmas, and so they made that a holiday to celebrate the mother of the revolution or something. But you'll find that their major holidays are very consistent with all of these sun worshiping holidays. And it's all based around their leaders being some kind of a imperial divine cult. So anyway, they call it a cult of personality. I would call it an imperial cult. Now I know some people out there say North Korea doesn't exist. Some people say panda bears don't exist. And I'm writing a book right now, not a book, it's actually a course I'm working on Udemy, and that's the title of tonight's live stream, Auto Hoaxology and Metascript Decodes, because I think it's important to differentiate what we do from what people who don't believe in panda bears do. Because it's one thing to say, I find that unbelievable, it can't be real. It's another thing to actually investigate it and debunk it. And if something like that, like if panda bears are fake, that's big news. And if you're trying to grow your YouTube channel, prove it. Making the claim itself is not an argument, and it can be disregarded with zero counter evidence. Hitchens' razor. All right, let us continue. No military parades as North Korea celebrates its founder's birth. Yeah, my contention here. Oh, and it's the 110th anniversary. Okay, so their eternal dictator, 110th anniversary. I believe it's also the 110th anniversary of the Titanic. Yes, it's the 110th anniversary of the Titanic and of the founding or the birthday of the founder. And I believe he was born in a manger and there was a new star in the sky. Like I'm telling you, it's templated. It's all, and it's a, what do you call it when you have a ruler who rules from the other side? A dead ruler who's like the eternal dictator. You have, there's a name. All right, thanks again. I appreciate everyone here who pitches in on the super chats and subscribes and joins Patreon because I'm working towards making this a full-time occupation. I have other things I'm doing now to keep it going, but we have experienced a lot of resistance, and I think for the most part we've become immune. There's really nothing they can do to censor this channel. We're too well organized at this point. So it's just a matter of time. So I just took on a part-time job in order to keep the flow. Like I said, I don't want any interrupt. This whole movie that we're watching unfold, this staged drama, is ongoing, and we don't miss anything. And I'm constantly getting emails and messages from people, clues, tips, pieces to this million-piece puzzle. And so I like to respond to all these things and keep the research going. Schuyler Tell said, IPS would be one of the most popular shows in conspiratainment, I'm convinced, if not for the censorship gremlins. Yes, but the meme pool that we've built here, this reservoir, it's been dammed up, but it's about to break. There's the lawsuit against YouTube, which I think will do some good as far as allowing me to take control of this content. Because for the longest time, well, like 4 years now, 3.5 years now, there has been someone else who has claimed trademark over my voice even. This is identity theft by all definition, and we'll get to that. Here's an example of a tip that was sent to me. This was sent to me over on Facebook back in March. I'm just now, no, February, just now getting to it. So let me go ahead and play this. This is called Travel. This is a commercial where he casually walks by a group of astronauts faking space. And I bring this up for one reason. There are people who say there's no way they can fake space. It'd be way easier to go to space than to fake it. I hear that argument all the time, as though these people have never seen science fiction on TV. But here's a commercial where you have some astronauts faking space with harnesses.
I wish I'd discovered a crunchier chip.
There you have it, astronauts dangling in front of a... This is again a commercial from Expedia from last month. Now, if I were to suggest that this was all true, I'd be promulgating dangerous misinformation. But the media can do it if it's in the context of a joke, or if they put it in their own frame. You know, they really have control over who can joke about what. That's what they're really getting to here, because they know that jokes, that memes that are funny, carry the dangerous misinformation much further. Knockout Bear says, Happy Ishtar. Yeah, exactly. Now, this name Ishtar, Easter, Venus, Frida, Friday, Bridget, it all ties in to these these really the big storyline, the meta script, but these world stage events where it looks like just one actor slapping a comedian on the face, and it's obviously because he insulted the guy's wife. That's the exoteric version of it. And it actually aligns perfectly with a number of myths, a number of well established stories, and moreover, that action mirrored the character in a movie and also had a correlation to the news of the day where Venus Williams' journey through the green court of the tennis courts was depicted there as a parallel with the new Supreme Court nominee going to the Supreme Court, and all of this done during the 75th anniversary month of Jackie Robinson breaking the MLB color barrier. These are highly structured and very elaborate and intricate PR stunts. That's the esoteric side of it, the hidden side, the side that, is behind the curtain. And it shows you how many insiders are on these things. Evil Coyote says necrocracy, or, yeah, it could be. The dead ruler in North Korea. Benton says space is fake. Yes. I mean, I like William Cooper. I was listening to some of him just a little while ago on that George News thing. The thing is, though, he is the only real conspiracy theorist out there that has actually confronted space and not mystified it. Many will say, well, space is real. There's super secret technology. There are aliens. And moreover, they tend to just assume that there's some big secret and that there's more out there rather than it's all fake. Case in point, InfoWars, huge moon landing believer. Even though all the moon rocks are petrified wood. Is the moon made out of wood? If not, why not? You have no answer if you're a moon landing believer. If you believe in the moon landing, you can't tell me why the moon rocks are made out of wood, and how that would not lead us to conclude that the moon is wood. But William Cooper called the whole thing out as just elaborate psychodrama, this neo-pagan, Masonic, satanic ritual. It's part of this new mass religion. New shop sale from Infinite Muse. Yes, I am back to selling art. I was going through my collection of this pile of uncompleted paintings and have been finishing up a few things. I tend to work on a painting till it's like 95% done, and then I just discard it, go to the next one, and then I have a pile of paintings that could be pretty much completed whenever. Benton says dinos are fake. Well, the news now is that dinosaurs are on the moon because the impact from the Mount Everest-sized crater had a bit of a splashing effect. It destroyed our atmosphere, created a vacuum, and it basically caused the Earth to spew all kinds of biomatter into space. I mean, they say it hit the moon, but if the moon's 237,000 miles away, or whatever they say, why would it all have landed there? Like, I think it's safe to say that the Earth has basically a field, it must have a ring perhaps of dinosaur bones. I've been waiting for a big T-Rex skull to plunge through the side of the ISS. By the way, the ISS is likely falling very soon. We've been talking about the storyline that supports this, but I've been seeing some big shill channels, some of these guardrailed conspiracy theorists who still believe in outer space, talking about it falling. And I'm like, they don't even know that it's a movie. When I say guardrail, I mean conspiracy theories that keep people on the world stage. They keep you on team true believer. Oh, you're on that side of the screen. You're metaverse. I'm not quite there. By the way, Elon Musk goes hostile with a $42 billion bid. I'm pointing this out because this is the number. Look at the first press releases. The price he chose was even has 420 in it. He put 42 into it for a reason. But after the fact, many media outlets changed it to 41, others to 43. Why? Oh, it's just $1 billion, rounding error, right? A $1 billion rounding error. Nope, 42 is their salute to Saturn, their god, their monolith, their new monotheism, their technocratic AI god. This is 42. That's what it means. It's the symbol of Saturn. It's how they have encoded the stuff that they put in plain sight. So they're trying to hide it though. Like I said, if you look up Elon Musk, you'll find now it's 43 billion. His 43 billion dollar takeover bid. Some say almost a billion or almost 43 billion. But again, this is exactly what we've seen consistently ever since Chadwick Boseman. Elon Musk offers to acquire Twitter for 42 billion, Business Insider. Well, somebody call Business Insider and say, "Hey, you made a $1 billion error here. That's kind of a thing." Anyway, it's not insignificant. They make it look like some sci-fi joke. Look at this one here, the Starship prototype. This is the one that crashed on February 2nd, which was the 33rd day of the year last year. And that was the day that Jeff Bezos announced he was stepping down from Amazon. But this is the one that crashed, incinerated, and had a 42 on the engine. And this is all code. It's not only a reference to the science fiction movie. So my point is, there's a bigger meaning to it. And I find it noteworthy that they are trying to cover this up. 42 is code for Saturn, Satan, El, fallen angels of the elite worship. Bezos bought a $42 million clock, a 10,000-year clock, which he put into a mountain in Texas that he hollowed out. Not 43 million, 42. Everything you need to know about Bezos' $42 million clock, 150 meters tall. Why a clock? Well, a clock, Kronos, Saturn, it's the same entity that they're calling out here. So, again, no coincidences, but they're trying to hide it and it's a little too late. And who are they hiding it from? How many people are openly out there just calling out their Masonic ritual script and coding real time? It can't just be us. Maybe it's a bigger problem. Phase Polarizer says, I can't wait to see the fake Chinese space station. Yeah, they didn't even build it. Like you would think that you'd see parts and it's this magnificent thing. Let's get a time lapse of us building this castle in the sky, this massive orbiting cathedral. No, just one day it's there. Like in a video game, you just get an upgrade, you just buy a craft for your character. They just put it up there in their fake environment and it's there. Supposedly, it was nearly hit by 2 CubeSats, which is interesting because I was thinking about this. 2 CubeSats, 2 errant CubeSats. Again, the cube is another symbol of Saturn. If you get into the symbolism, it's all very interesting. We'll get there. But I was thinking about this. These 2 satellites that supposedly, I guess Musk lost them. Watch. And I'm thinking this could have been an intentional provocation. But the Chinese space station reported that back in, I think it was in August, here we go. Close encounters, 2 near misses that posed serious threats to astronauts' lives. So I'm like, okay, there's 2, but usually the number is 42. Whenever there's something with some kind of collision or catastrophe. And then sure enough, I was like, there's got to be some other side of this. 40 CubeSats fell to the Earth. So there's 42 unaccounted for CubeSats. A solar storm knocked 40 SpaceX satellites out of the sky. So there you have it, 42. And I was saying that this being the 42, well, it's been, I think 42 years since Skylab fell. I was like, this is when stuff's going to start to fall. It's one of the codes. 42 is a code for this, the falling. Perhaps the space wars, the falling of the space station. It's all encoded into the story. So 42 CubeSats getting lost is very consistent with the storyline we've been following. But yeah, space is fake. Jenna Lovecraft Reeves says, Imagine Dragons music video for I'm on Top of the World films a fake moon landing. Well, Dragon is the name of Musk's capsule. And if you remember back in 2020, the same week that Kobe Bryant exploded in the sky, you had the Dragon and the Falcon. And you had what Musk called a sacrifice. He said, we must sacrifice Falcon 9 in Dragon fire. So they intentionally blew it up in the sky. Now, this is during the week of the Challenger explosion. This is during the week of the Kobe Bryant, during the week of the Apollo 1 incineration. There are a number of fiery explosions that are happening that are always pertaining to this space drama around that same time of the year, which leads me to think it's just more occult ritual, which I think it is. And you go into the symbolism here, though, dragon versus the falcon, sacrificing the falcon in dragon's fire. It's the same ritual. It's just more or less the sun is the challenger who challenges the night and gets dismembered and killed. Then he resurrects and he comes back the next day and fights again. The idea here, though, is the death. The sun god is the challenger. So what happened to the challenger? Well, the challenger gets destroyed. And the timing of the destruction of the challenger, 73 seconds or 1 minute 13 seconds, 113, ties in to the replacement tower for the Twin Towers that burned after 33 years. 13 years later, resurrected the One World Tower, and they opened it on 113. Just as 9/11 has very special significance, so does 113. And it's all code for this resurrecting Savior, symbolized by the phoenix, symbolized by these various, well, there's various ways that they represent it, these various rituals. The Burning Man is another example. So my point being, someone had brought this up, the dragon. I think the dragon may fit into this story of this space wars and this war in heaven. The story of like the dragon pulls down a third of the stars. Well, if you think about it, if there is some kind of a Kessler syndrome, like the Dragon capsule accidentally tips the space station over, which happened this summer, the Russian module tipped the space station 540 degrees. And I was saying even before that, all indications are the Russians are going to take this thing down. So anyway, I was saying it would be interesting and noteworthy if there was some kind of misfire of the thrusters and the Dragon were to cause the space station to fall and maybe drag a third of the Starlink satellites down. I mean, that's how they use these storylines, these scripts, and they call to mind metaphors, biblical and otherwise. I've been talking a lot about the symbol of the Tower of Babel, which is given away. I think Amazon is the Tower of Babel in many ways in the space program. Their Helix building actually has that as a design, but they use these consciously. There's a reason why the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, is warning you about the floods. And they use a symbol of the dove, which is the symbol of the biblical Noah. There's a reason why they're using these biblical templates. And that's one of the things I've been pointing out here, especially with the QAnon cult believing that the Kennedys are a returning Christ, returning bloodline of Jesus. And this is, again, no more laughable than North Korea and the way they deify they worship their leaders. All right, going through your comments. Fascinating. Repentagram says, Godzilla is in the Bible as Behemoth, and there's Godzilla in the Illuminati. There must be some truth to the big lizard. It could be code, but I think so. I was looking into the connection between Cthulhu, the Kraken, Point Nemo, where the space cemetery is, where they drop the satellites. So you get the idea of the falling satellites, dead satellites, falling and landing at Point Nemo. Well, that's where H.P. Lovecraft says the dead gods that fell from the sky live in the dead city, R'lyeh. And Cthulhu is this massive octopus-headed kraken who's down there dead but will resurrect. So you have this idea of a kraken at exactly the place where NASA says they want to drop the ISS, where they drop all their satellites. And it also happens to be the place where Jules Verne who's huge in the whole man to the moon concept, where he put Point Nemo 20,000 leagues under the sea. So it's a very significant place geographically, but also in terms of the science fiction. And very, I would say, very foundational science fictional works. And I was thinking about the Cthulhu Kraken thing in this context, just because the name also the heavy consonants. There's a lot of patterning here, and you do see a lot of squid stuff in a lot of these movies. Space squids. And if you get into the Lovecraft mythos, one of the ideas is that possibly there was a comet, another reoccurring theme with the Kraken. A comet hits the Earth, and it brings with it what we know today to be the oceans. So the ocean's a foreign alien body, and what's in it? Aliens. And that's kind of, well, like, for example, this squid-headed thing and all of its progeny. So the idea that there are intelligent beings, intelligent life that have already invaded, and they just don't look like what we would think aliens look like. So yeah, maybe. And one of the more interesting notions of Lovecraft stories is that they intermingled with the humans. So they have their own bloodline descendants that rule, which is like just like the ancient alien theories, only it's not reptoids, it's squid people. I don't know any that I know of. But in many of the stories, it's the idea is that these descendants are actually telepathically controlled and connected to their god or whatever. So you have this hive mind waiting to be resurrected or to be awakened. So the symbol of the ocean or the deep water as a subconscious is significant here, because when the Kraken rises, the idea is that you would have this mass awakening where all of the people who are secretly under the control of this thing usurp and take over. That's kind of the idea, and it may tie in to this goo blood thing and this idea of Gaia, this kind of AI that somehow interfaces with injectable operating systems. But not that you would need it. I mean, people already behave like insects for the most part, and very conformist, even without any kind of alterations. Anyway, let us continue. David Pryor says the Leviathan is a dragon that comes from the water. Yeah, I was shown something the other day, and I need to look into this, but if you look at the symbol of the Church of Satan, they have Hebrew characters that spell Leviathan around the star. And so I looked into it, and it's their trademarked thing. So they made it a point to put Leviathan there, and that appears to be who or what they worship, because they face the ocean, they face the west when they pray, or they, I guess, pray, but it spells Leviathan. And the founder's name of the church is not his real name, Anton LaVey, is somewhat anagrammatically encoded if you read it as Leviathan, LaVey, Anton. There's kind of a anagram there, and it seems to be a code. So there is this thing with Leviathan and the Kraken, a reoccurring theme that we've been examining. And let me show you this other one here. I was looking at a compilation of predictive programming from Donald Trump throughout the years. And one of the things that I saw here was from, I believe it was a Legos movie, where they have this super weapon that they call a Kragile. Let me go ahead and play it. It says, the Kragile is the most powerful super weapon. So I don't believe in big sea monsters or anything like that, but there's a metaphor. There's some kind of clue being conveyed here. So here is from a collection of predictive programming, a compilation, 60 years. 60 years of Donald Trump predictive programming. And this goes through all sorts of movies, Simpsons. I'll play a couple clips.
To build the world's largest bookmobile. Isn't there any money left for that?
No, and we borrowed from every country in the world.
So,
Same luxury
this is Donald
and
Trump
comfort.
on a commercial where he's selling mattresses, and there's a prominent 9/11 here.
I demand in my hotels.
Oh, they'll never count sheep again.
Listen, why don't you come work for me?
What do you have in mind?
Something you were born to do.
Welcome to...
There you have it. Something you were born to do, and there's a pretty obvious 9/11. The part I'm looking for is from a Legos movie where it talks about a super weapon called, here it is, the Kragile.
All the master builders who were always changing everything. And those of us who remained, well, we went in hiding, built the tunnels to survive.
It means I don't believe you. Why else would you show up with that thing on your back just 3 days before President Business is going to use the crackle to end the
The crackle. It says Kragile here, but he's pronounced it like Craggle.
world?
The Kraggle is the most powerful super weapon. So again, there's a suggestion here. Kragile super weapon. The Kraken being released has been a reoccurring theme ever since July of 2020 when the NHL released their commercial for the Kraken. And the thing is, the Seattle Kraken, the commercial was 1 minute 13 seconds. And that was kind of a clue to me to look deeper. And sure enough, recently, and we're talking Seattle, Kraken, another connection here, in Inside Job, which is a TV show on Netflix, which means it predicts the future. On Inside Job, there's an episode where Jeff Bezos is actually killed by a Kraken on his mega yacht. And the significance there, of course, is the yacht symbolizes the Titanic. The West is the Titanic. Climate change is the iceberg. In the movie Don't Look Up, it was about a comet hitting the Earth, and not listening to scientists was going to doom us all. Not listening to the modern day Noahs. That was kind of the story. But again, it's this idea of the Kraken. What is going to break the system? Kraken 2. What is going to be the rift? And I think that's kind of what this is a metaphor. Again, the Titanic, here it is. Jeff Bezos' mega yacht featured on Inside Job.
They can tow your yacht into shore. I got a better plan. Look. Is that a Kraken? Hell yes. I'm about to collect on my yacht insurance policy.
Hey, has anyone seen Jeff Bezos?
Is the fight over, guys? This is why I don't allow bathroom breaks!
So there you have it, Jeff Bezos eaten by a Kraken. And when have you ever seen something on Netflix not manifest in reality? Tominoid says, House of the Dragon from Game of Thrones spin-off prequel. The series is scheduled to premiere August 21st, 2022. Yeah, Game of Thrones has some interesting symbolism. The Iron Throne, House of Stark, Tony Stark, Iron Man, the Game of Thrones emblem for the House of Stark on Mars, Iron Man in real life, Elon Musk going to Mars. They have connected everything because they steer people's minds. Once Upon a says, Leviathan is a great white whale according to some. Captain Ahab tried to fight it. They used spears. I saw a meme I can't even put on the screen, so I'll get taken down, but it's in Discord. If you know, you know. It has to do with that particular story. Maybe I'll get to it later. But I don't think it's a literal thing, as in a big squid. I mean, how problematic could that be? Now, I watched the Godzilla vs. King Kong recently, and one of the first things I noticed was Godzilla, or the Godzillas, are stored below the ground at sub-level 33. Alright, let me see here, going through comments. Jenna Lovecraft Reeve says, everything is awesome. Tominoid says, Trashzilla. Lean says, new Sniper Elite video game has Operation Kraken, which is a secret Nazi plan. Interesting considering Europe's theater at the moment. Yep. And if you look into Kraken, you'll find it everywhere. Like Kraken, and then you look at Clarence Thomas's wife, Ginny Thomas, released the Kraken. This is an actual tweet from Clarence Thomas's wife regarding the election and flipping it. Yep. Ginny Thomas released the Kraken. Of course, the Kraken was, at one point it referred to, was it Sidney Powell? The interesting thing too, though, is around the time that this Kraken story started getting out there in this meme, this is when Hunter Biden's laptop started getting popularized, and the Kraken, rather the crack in it. And then fast forward to February, this is where it all starts to make sense. So in February, we're watching the return of Pluto to where it was July 4th, 1776. So 1776 versus 1619 is the major schism. That's the rift. That's the crack. as we will all see, I believe, very soon. But what I'm looking at here is Pluto is Hades. Hades creates and releases the Kraken. And I started looking into this because of the Gabby Petito story, where Brain Laundry or Brian Laundry took Gabby Petito out and killed her, kidnapped her, and her body was found on September 22nd. We're talking Libra. So she was Virgo. She was personified as Virgo in all the pictures. If you saw the way she was typecast, posing in front of the mural with the wings, one leg cocked, she kept looking like Virgo. Then you see her as Persephone. She's holding this object, like a pomegranate, which is exactly like her counterpart in I Pet Goat. You have these very strong Gabby Petito I Pet Goat, which is this journey through an underworld. Well, anyway, she's 22. All kinds of like Virgin Galactic takes off, Unity 22. There was all kinds of Virgo Virgin 22 stuff. So when I see this character come out and then they find her on the 22nd, well, that's the day that we go into the fall, the equinox. And so that's when Persephone goes into the underworld. So I look and it turns out that Persephone is the personification of Virgo. So I was already looking at Hades as a character on the world stage and this kidnapping of Persephone with this Gabby Petito thing. So then you fast forward to the 22nd of February, the Donde 2 event, which is really just a ritual to Pluto. The producer, Future, goes by Pluto, starts out bathed in purple light, color associated with Pluto. You had all the characters there, all the ritual props, that this was some major ritual. And I thought, well, this must be when they release the Kraken, or at least when it starts. And a couple days later, the whole thing in Europe starts. They hit play on that movie. Putin cured COVID on that day, pretty much. Now, leading up to that, though, I start looking at, wait, Pluto, Hades, he's a god of the underworld. He's got the two-barbed spear, the Bident. And I'm like, wow, Biden. Because for months, there'd been stories where Joe Biden left a dead dog at some Republican's doorstep. Joe Biden kicking his dog. Joe Biden fell, twisted his ankle while pulling his dog's tail. And it just kind of stood out to me because every time I look at images of Hades, he's always got these dogs on a leash. And we're talking about, again, this god of the underworld. So here is Hades and his dog, or Pluto, and his Bident, which is the two-pronged spear. So here you have the imagery of this guy with the leash dogs pulling on the dogs, and then the spear's the Biden. I'm thinking Biden, Bident, and there are word plays with these things. Do you remember Osama bin Laden, Obama, and Biden? Like they play word games all the time. So I thought, well, maybe they were building up to this. And curiously enough, just as we reach Pluto return, what happens? Joe Biden starts sending out crack pipes to everybody. So you had the crack pipe stimmy. So he's releasing the crack pipe, and these are Shakespearean level world stage jokes. This isn't connecting the dots. It's not cherry picking. This is their sense of humor. Biden funding crack pipes. This is their joke. This is their way of mocking, and we've seen many such things. It's all over their events. You know, the first man to get the vax was a guy named William Shakespeare in Warwickshire, who actually had a sister named Margaret. I mean, William Shakespeare. They tell you it's a world stage. One of my top favorites still to this day, next to Maggie the Block, would have to be Roseanne Boylan, the one who was carrying the "Don't Tread on Me" flag and got trampled to death. Again, if you're hearing that noise in the background, that Godzilla noise, that's a reference to this channel and what happens when we get over the critical mass hump, and we're just about there. Thanks again. Appreciate everyone who's frequenting the shop. I'm going to be adding more NFTs, animated for the most part. Salty Siren says Donde also means Bident or double point. Interesting. Well, there were two of those events too. These events are enormously significant when you look at how they tie into other events. The burning house represents, well, it looks like, I think it represents the White House, but in many ways, it's a broader symbol. But you got the house at Donde that they burn, and he says, "Oh, this is based on my childhood house." I don't think so, unless your childhood house had a cross on it. I mean, it looks more like a church. But I was like thinking this must mean something in relation to the Western film Rust, where you had the house, and then West World, based around that chapel, that white chapel, that White House. So you have this recurring theme of this house, which ties in to the characters who are performing this ceremony. For example, at the first Donde event, Kanye West had himself set on fire, a phoenix. So that's very significant given that that was the anniversary date of when they normally hold the Burning Man festivals. They had 33 of them. Black Rock City, Nevada, canceled because of COVID. But it doesn't matter because look, he filled in for it. That was the role he played. So then it's very significant to me though that he would play that role, and then here at the Donde 2 release, one of his one of his co-performers, Marilyn Manson, is now confronting someone who releases a documentary that day, or the trailer for Phoenix Rising. Strong Phoenix connection, and she represents basically a documentary about her life, but also in Westworld, the same person, same actress represents Persephone. So you have this Persephone going into the underworld, Persephone coming out. And the documentary Phoenix Rising is about Persephone escaping Hades. So there's an interesting story here that connects the Donde event to these celestial events, to these bigger cyclical or annual ceremonies. We'll get into all this stuff. I want to continue, but we're looking at, Kanye Westworld was a fascinating breakdown. We went over that in February. And this is, again, very structured, intricate stuff. When you look at 2/2/2022, you had the killing of Amir Locke over the no-knock warrants. They suspend no-knock warrants because Amir Locke's door was unlocked by the police at 6:48 a.m. 6:48 is a mirror of 8:46, the time that Derek Western chauvinism knelt on George Floyd. 6:48, a mirror of 8:46. His name's a mirror. And what's more, it's in the Twin Cities. So twin, a mirror, 2222, a month of palindromes. All right, I'm going through some comments here. Salty Siren says White House equals crack house. I find that hard to dispute. I really do. Lean Dion says never knew Russia gave a statue to the U.S. after 9/11. It's a big teardrop between a crack representing the Twin Towers, worth peeping. There's a magazine that was out in the 80s and 90s called Cracked, and it was specifically always featuring in some way some kind of destruction of the Twin Towers. Look at this, 100-foot teardrop memorial from Putin honoring the victims of 9/11. At the base, engraved in a stone, are the names of every person lost. I can tell you some names that aren't on that list, and some names that are conspicuously on the list. You know, Pete Davidson's dad died at 33 in the Twin Towers. That's why Pete Davidson stands out. I think he's going to be the new Ron Goldman when Kanye goes OJ. Now ask yourself, why was there never any press coverage of such a beautiful and generous gift? Yeah, I'd never heard of this thing. Fascinating, though. Really, really interesting work. Anyway, it's all based on a lie. But this is what they do. They know that our truth can be digitally deleted. Our books can be burned. We can be demonetized. Meanwhile, they put their truth in stone. They build monuments. We need to build monuments to the fakery. You know, if the Satanists can put a big Baphomet statue at their city hall up there in Michigan or whatever, we can put statues up like, basically like maybe the unknown crisis actor, and just have some generic crisis actor, holding up a phone, with a paycheck in the other hand. Because we're looking at this sort of really, I'd almost call it oppressive use of public space to force their agendas through. Like, they don't really allow you to have any kind of contradiction. For example, there was a situation in Denver that's shooting at the theater, all fake, all staged. But afterward, they built this memorial, and it was like 17 swans flying away from the scene. And it was, out there in Aurora. So I went out there to check it out. This memorial for these shooting victims. And I went out there like the day after it opened, and I thought this is interesting because I'm looking at this Colorado shooting memorial, and there's people walking all around it. So I'm thinking this must be, victims, families, survivors, etc. No, it turns out that there was a Pokemon, more or less not a convention, but there was some kind of a Pokemon that had been set loose in the area, and a bunch of Pokemon hunters were marching around this memorial looking for Pokemons. And I'm like, wow. From far back, it kind of looks like people are mourning. Very tricky. All right, going through your comments. Yeah, I'd never seen that thing before. There are some other things worth looking at. There's a big metal ball they put in the middle of the towers that supposedly got damaged. Now, since we're on this topic, I want to point this out for those who have not seen this. The space station, if you ask me, is really just it's a movie for one, but it's a prop in the bigger story, just like the Twin Towers were props. They were built in 1968, torn down 2001, 32 years later. Look, the space station took 42 separate launches to build. That number 42 stands out very conspicuously when you're analyzing their stories. But the story is that this thing, like the Twin Towers, was built to fall. And I'm finding more and more imagery of the space station on fire. Videos of the space station falling. Even the Russian media machine out there, they put out something of this kind of a joke, but it was Russians leaving the ISS. Like abandoning ship. Russia threatens to leave the ISS. NASA chief says Russia leaving the ISS could kick off a space race. But we're being inundated with imagery of stuff falling from the sky in all the movies, all the Netflix, Don't Look Up, Moonfall, The 100, Raised by Wolves, and probably about 10 or 15 others I have not mentioned. As in, it's recent. So in recent memory, the public subconscious has been saturated with images of things falling from the sky. So when I'm looking at the space station story unfold, I'm seeing more and more images of this thing on fire, burning in the crosshairs. But when you zoom in on it, and this is the point, zoom in on any one of these images of the space station, and you can kind of see what looks to be an intentional architectural resemblance to the Twin Towers, whereas the solar array, especially when you see shots of it on fire, could easily be confused. Like it's one of these things, it's a patterning. It's not insignificant when you look at the movie itself, like for example, the 9/11 movie, and its director, presumably someone around Kubrick and those around him. This is some kind of, I'm looking at these things as theatrical productions, as psyops, not false flags, obviously. But even in the foreshadowing, you can see that these events are just choreographed. So here's one with a space plane flying into Twin Towers in space. This is from Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey. And it's a close match of Flight 175 speeding towards the tower. My point being, I think that the fall of the space station is part of the same story that brought you 9/11. And that would explain the symbolism of the Twin Towers and their resemblance in many, many shots to the ISS. Now, it's not obvious at first, but it's one of these things you just really can't unsee. And it's becoming more obvious with more recent coverage of this thing, where the future of the ISS is been pretty much assured that it's going to fall. And when it falls, it's going to burn up in the atmosphere. Here's an example of it. Now, this is something, like I said, this is something that's saturating the public mind. It would have been unthinkable. You're not seeing images like this promulgated of the White House burning or being hit with meteors yet. But if you do, well, we have actually in many movies. But take a look at this. At first glance, it looks like you're seeing this shot out of 9/11. Talking about big explosion, twin towery looking things. And it's the same symbol. This is kind of my point too. World trade, world unity. International Space Station represents international unity. And that's why it's so significant as a prop. As the cooperation below dissolves, what's going to happen up above. And last summer, there was a story that said that there are literal cracks in the space station. And they use that word. Cracks on the space station are serious. Russian cosmonauts find new cracks in the ISS. ISS is cracked and facing irreparable failures. Cracks appearing in the ISS could trigger an avalanche. Cracks indicate beginning of the end for the ISS. Again, it's significant too that this is 42 years from Skylab falling, and they start announcing that this thing's going to fall. So it went from nobody was talking about it to when and where. Same thing with space junk. Now space junk is a thing. Going through some comments. Benton says the ISS is only up there because you called it out. They're waiting for you to forget it. Right, that I would hate to think that a single YouTube channel could have any impact on the big story. We're critics. We shouldn't have any influence. Okay, let's see what else. Lean Dion says the bat burning tower image on the Batman cover. Yeah, they started introducing the bat as Phoenix in advance. So we should have known that the coming Phoenix, the coming reset, you have so many reset symbols here based on this idea of the Phoenix, the bird, but they represent it often as a bat, as a crow in the Crow movie. You have this recurring theme. It even shows up in Hunger Games, the jaybird holding the arrow, the dove holding the olive branch, same symbol. So anyway, we should have seen the bat years ago and known, okay, the bat's going to be the end of us all. It all started with the bat, which is a tagline from a movie called Daybreakers from 2009 about a 2019 pandemic that shuts down the world. Until some guy named Elvis saves us. He's played by William Dafoe. A Smarty Pants says, did I lose my wrench? Oh, yeah, our channels all got shot down. So if you're on YouTube, just so you know, I can't access that channel. What I do is I save the keys to all my channels because I know they're going to kick me off at some point. But I can use my restreaming software and still use them. I just can't do anything. But it's important to keep the chat open. Rourke66 says, I was watching an interpretation of 2001 A Space Odyssey, and he was saying that the monolith is referring without a doubt to the TV screen, just turn it on its side. And now your smartphone. It's the cult of the monolith's Bible. It's the box they want you to put your mind in. Smarty Pants asks, Tim, what if the Kabbalists are right and the only God is Satan? Interesting. Can you prove that they're wrong? I mean, really, if you think about it, I see more evidence that whoever is behind this magnificent world stage theater, that this is pagan pageantry, and that whoever's behind it is more or less on the side that you would refer to as, maybe not Satan, but some kind of earth god, some god of death and resurrection. I was looking at the moon, the pink moon, tonight, and it made me think about this idea. What is it? The Saturn moon soul matrix. This really bizarre idea, but I kind of like it. The Saturn moon matrix. And I think the basic idea of it is that we're somehow trapped in some projection of Saturn, the god of time, that we're caught in some kind of a cycle or a loop, and that our souls are being, I guess, planted here by the sun, and then we die and we get sucked up into the moon and we go back into the cycle, and that it's some kind of a trap. I don't know if this is true or not, but the way the moon looked tonight, yeah, it looked like it could be perhaps sucking up dead souls. And then I'm thinking it kind of fits in with this story when you get into this Death Star. The moon of Saturn, Mimas, looks just like the Death Star. And in that series, in the Star Wars series, Saturn is personified as Darth Vader. The sun, the light, Luke Skywalker. Sun moves across the sky. So I'm thinking, okay, you got Luke Skywalker and Saturn, Sun and the Saturn. You got the split. But it made me think that perhaps the Death Star could also represent in some ways the opposite of the Sun. One gives life, one takes. I mean, if you look at it from that perspective of this being some kind of a prison for souls, and these are some kind of portals or entrance and exit points. I mean, I don't know. I just came across this, and I was looking at the moon tonight, and it's an interesting idea. It's somewhat consistent with this recurring theme of recycling, as in reincarnation, but reincarnation being reintroduced as recycling as a concept. Like, I think there's an esoteric side here to a number of things that they've given us. Like even the smartphones, if you look into, there's an occult aspect to it. You got the apple with the bite, I think is an allusion to Eden. But what's more, I think that the iPhones themselves, especially the iPhone 13, which is quite literally this black monolith in your hand, I think it's conveying something. Just like the symbolic systems use architectural terms in Freemasonry to convey spiritual concepts, I think they're doing the same with a lot of our technology. So they're getting us used to the idea of transhumanism, of digitally uploading consciousness, of the idea of consciousness as something that can be housed in an object, in a computer. They're preparing us, I believe, with everything they are. It's always conditioning. So what are we being conditioned for? And I think we're being conditioned to believe in this idea of serial reincarnation of souls, not necessarily body to body, but body to, again, the cloud. And all the big movies right now on Amazon and Netflix are all about this. Upload, for example. Movies about the mind being uploaded into this type of simulation. Same thing with Vanilla Sky, which is kind of an old movie now, 20 years. It's about someone who is on a cryogenic freeze and he goes to live in this paradise. But they've been preparing us for this for some time. And one other thing, 2001: A Space Odyssey, they go to Jupiter, but if you look at the original manuscript, it should have been Saturn. They say they didn't go with Saturn because it was hard to fake the rings. I think it would have been too obvious that there's a strong correlation between the monolith and Saturn in the symbolism that they might want to obfuscate. I started off talking about how the number 42 is one of their codes for Saturn, and I'm going to do a 10-minute video specifically on that to explain how I arrive at this. But that after Musk puts out that $42 billion offer on Twitter, suddenly it's 43 or 41, depending on where you look. Tominoid says, Dark Knight Returns comic 1986. Two-Face plants 2 bombs in the Gotham Twin Towers. Another great example of how the meta script that we're living through is foreshadowed in all of the entertainment, not just the movies, but the comics. And moreover, that the Batman Joker thing has been encoded into all of these major events. It's very significant that, and I mentioned this the other day, the new Batman movie came out on 3/4, the same day that the Boston bomber got the death penalty reinstated. They call him the Joker. Joker Sarnath. The Joker got the death penalty reinstated the day the Batman movie comes out. Then we have the Boston bombing light. And that character is pretty much based on the Riddler from the new Batman. So you have another Batman tie-in with this guy. They call him the Riddler for the QAnon crowd. He's got 500 followers, just like the guy in the Batman movie who incites a shooting. I have to go watch it. I'm waiting for it to be available streaming. I may just go down to the theater because these movies are important to watch if you're trying to understand where everything is going, because they tell you. We watched the Joker in 2019, and I have some. I'll probably put these on the replay. I put Joker and the Coming Chaos, about the significance of the character Joaquin Phoenix, his name, his real-world activism for climate change, and how it corresponded to the communist revolution implied in the Joker movie with the masked rebellion. How you could have looked at that and said, that's coming soon. And it did. 2020. Jokers went wild. And the whole Jokers are the wild card. They're the ones who are allowed to cause chaos in order to stir things up so that the public will then ask for order to be imposed. It's this dialectic. Order out of chaos, Joker, Batman represent these poles. So I think it's noteworthy that the summer of 2020 was preceded by the Joker movie. And so now we have the Batman movie out. So I'm expecting right-wing violence. And moreover, I think that we're going to see not just right-wing violence, but possibly even this idea of this right-wing domestic terrorist now kind of replacing I guess now they're replacing radical Islamic terror cells with these domestic violent extremist cells. But it would follow the pattern. You got the extremists from one side, now the extremists from the other side. Going through some comments. Linda Curtis says the ISS fall is probably Satan falling in their script. Well, when you read the script, the idea of satellites floating, I mean, they're not really floating. I mean, in reality, they're probably just balloons. So they are floating. But when they're orbiting, they're falling around this ball. And again, it's not a coincidence that ball is just another name of their Earth god, represented by a rocket-looking obelisk. No coincidences here. But they're falling. And so satellites, Saturn, E-L, another name of Saturn. Lights, of course, the lights in the sky. So the idea of CubeSats. Well, cube is another symbol of Saturn. And I'll have to break these down and put it succinctly into one 10-minute video, just to show where I'm coming from. And this is why I'm starting the Udemy course. And you'll be the first to know when I'm releasing those. And obviously, if you're a member of my Patreon or the infiniteplanesociety.com website, I'll basically just send those to you. You don't have to join Udemy. But I am doing that, again, to compile all of this information in a way that, people can dispute it, challenge it, but I'm just pointing out facts. It's not conspiracy theory. But I want to put it in a cohesive way so you can see where we're coming from when we accurately predict things, as has been the case for the last couple of years. Get your space junk helmets before they mandate them. Tomanoid said Saturn is a projection of our world system thing and the skylights in fast motion. Or not. Lean Dion says Amazon Prime has a show called Expanse, a future where Belters live in a space mining asteroid near the sun, and UN runs the Earth and the Moon, which has beef with Mars. I would recommend watching Mars, which is a series on Netflix that shows you the two different groups that go to Mars. You got the Texans who want to go drill for oil with their big Phillip drills, and then you got the scientists led by cisgendered women who want to discover life. So they discover life on Mars, and the men cause an earthquake because they want to get oil to go back to Earth richer. So it's a little play. It's a story. It's just to say, hey, look, if we go their way, the way of Western chauvinism, we're going to just repeat all the mistakes of planet Earth and we're doomed. If we go their way, we will discover new life, and it's this utopian thing. We have to leave the MAGA hats and the guns and the capitalism and the internal combustion engine behind. It's all programming. Elon Musk is in that one, and it's so layered because on the one hand, space is a movie. So this is a movie about space being real. So it's a movie about something real, according to the people who believe the movie is real. And then you have real world characters in the movie who are consciously playing in a movie but talking about the real thing. And then you have the movie counterparts to the real world characters. So you got a Musk-like character in the movie where Musk actually has a cameo. I mean, this is why people are so screwed up. They don't even bother to tell you when it's a documentary and when it's real, and they know that people cannot tell the difference. They live in a movie. I say they, because it's not us. I mean, I really don't think any of you here are living on the world stage. Otherwise, why would you be here? Linda Curtis says, and utopia is an anagram. Oh, utopia means, I believe means no place, right? But it's never been paradise. You can't mistake utopia for paradise. Utopian visions have always been totalitarian, complete, perfect societies. We're talking central planning, masterminds, some human god deciding everything. The opposite of paradise. Going through comments, Repentagram says, Avenge Sevenfold Band's symbol is the bat. Their video, the stage, has Putin on a string being pulled by the devil. Interesting. Yeah, the bat as a symbol is something worth digging into. You know, it's not a joke. It's not a joke. I mean, it is a joke. It's not a coincidence. But yeah, it's a joke. I mean, I find it funny, but they find it funny too. That in 2020, the Quarter had a bowl of bat soup on it. You've seen it, right? The Samoan Quarter. I save these whenever I find them. It's like, wow, they actually put a bowl of bat soup on the Quarter for 2020. So it said, when I call this thing the world stage, I continue to appropriate and use that because we are looking at Shakespearean types of punny jokes all the time. Inside jokes, sly nods, winks, etc. I know Omicron is up like 21% here in the state where I live. It's like the new weather reports. Omicron's up. This variant's down. Get your boosters. Constant. Well, anyway, when Omicron was coming, and this ties in to everything else. Let me bring this up. So you had a piece of Russian space junk that was going to hit us back in, was it in December or January? So you have this piece of Russian space junk falling to Earth, and here it is, the Percy upper stage of the Russian Angara A5 heavy lift rocket. Crashing back to, it crashed on January the 5th. Here we go. Out of control Russian rocket falling to the Earth. Now here's the significance and the tie-ins, and this is what I'm talking about, the layered nature of these stories. So here we have a story, the exoteric, the public version of it is Russian space junk about to hit the Earth. And the Russian
rocket in decades failed to fire, and now the behemoth is falling back to Earth.
Oh, you catch that? They called it a behemoth. Some caller or commenter had mentioned that the behemoth, Leviathan, similar, same name. So here we're talking about a big piece of Russian space junk being associated with the Kraken, the behemoth. Again, these are buzzwords. Let's play this again.
Lift rocket in decades failed to fire, and now the behemoth is falling back to Earth. Experts say it's probable that big parts of the giant rocket will hit somewhere on Earth. Russian newspaper Moskovsky Komsomolets reports that a 20-ton segment of a large Russian rocket is falling out of control after its third stage failed to fire.
Okay, so here we're talking about this out-of-control Russian rocket about to hit the Earth. So the key word here, though, the name Percy, P-E-R-S-E-I. So this is also at the time that Omicron is infecting the Earth. So if you follow this channel, we often talk about the connection between inner space and outer space, space junk and the virus. And this constant correlation even extends to the first vaccine for the COVID was actually called Sputnik, which was the name of the first orbiting object, and it came out of Russia. So Omicron Percy 8, this is a reference to these reptoid aliens that frequently attempt to invade Earth. This is from Futurama. So you have Futurama alien invaders, and then you have the Omicron, and they come from Omicron. You have the Omicron variant, and then you have the Russian Percy. So again, Omicron, Percy, reptoid aliens invading the Earth, Russian space junk, same name as that variant is arriving. In fact, there's a YouTube clip that actually makes this connection. Let me play this here. Again, this is from Futurama, another one of these cartoons.
People of Earth, I am Lur of the planet Omicron Persei 8. Omicron Persei 8. Turn down the TV and...
There you have it. What are the odds?
I am Lur of the planet Omicron Persei 8.
Omicron in the United States. So as Omicron arrives, a piece of Russian space junk with the same name as the reptoid invaders shows up. Connection there. And then, okay, The Aliens Among Us is a cover of from The Economist, which is worth looking at in this context. How viruses shape the world. And this came out the same month as the Sputnik vaccine, August of 2020. By the way, a movie of that name came out, Sputnik, about aliens that arrive as viruses. But if you look here, are you looking in outer space or inner space? You can't tell. Is that a booster or is that AIDS? Is that a bacteria or is that Sputnik? Is that, you see what I mean? It's ambiguous on purpose. Inner space, outer space, circulation, orbit. And there's also the story from last summer where the first time the space station got hit by a piece of space junk, it was on the arm of the space station above its quote elbow. It got vaxxed. It got punctured. It has a hole in it. And the mission that the astronauts were on at that time was called Celestial Immunity because they were testing out the efficacy of vaccines in 0G. All right, going through some comments. Lean Dion says there's an old Omicron video game where David Bowie voices a character. Now there's a very, very good connection there as well, because you get into David Bowie and he's from, Space Oddity, which corresponds to Space Odyssey. David Bowie corresponds to David Bowman. And David Bowie's music has been running a parallel with the emergence of the space age from the beginning. They even played the song Space Oddity during Apollo 11 on the BBC. The first music video filmed in space, Chris Hadfield, was Space Oddity. Ground control to Major Tom, which I believe might be a reference to Tom Cruise, kind of a side note, but not really a side note when you consider the proximity of Cruise to Kubrick with the eyes wide shut thing. But Bowie's role can't be overstated with this whole space agenda, the androgen, the man who fell to Earth. And the man who fell to Earth is a Bowie film about this Martian who comes down to Earth because their planet ran out of water. And he basically starts this major corporation, and he becomes the world's wealthiest man, and he goes back to Mars. And this is very similar to Bezos' story, who also, like the man who fell to Earth, just showed up mysteriously in New Mexico. I think Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and Epstein have all run through this little area here. Anyway, David Bowie, like Bezos, has the conspicuous dilated pupil, one eye bigger than the other, the sly wink to their god. But anyway, Bowie has consistently portrayed or played this role. But now you got David Bowie in this video game called Omicron, which is about human beings, I believe, being demonically possessed or something. Let me see if I can find a breakdown on it. I remember watching a documentary about this game, and it was just, I think it was called, here we go, Omicron Nomad Soul. Maybe it was too ambitious, graphic-wise, for the technology at the time. But here we go. David Bowie made the music, produced 10 original songs. Nomad Soul is an adventure game from a third-person perspective. They use vehicles known as sliders. But anyway, it involves NPCs, which is kind of an interesting point here. NPCs, not that far off from the idea of the Matrix, where anybody can be possessed at any time, be turned against you, weaponized. All right, let's get back on track here. Finally, well, one more thing with Bowie let's bring up is probably the Starman. David Pryor says Kubrick made the Star Child. Yes, David Bowman. Yeah, this is a good connection here too. So David Bowman merges with the monolith, and he becomes a Star Child. This is all very, very interestingly connected to the whole thelemic concept. Every man and woman is a star is one of their dictums. The Star Child is the ultimate evolution of a human being. Commander David Bowman. So David Bowman merges with the monolith and he becomes the Star Child. David Bowie is featured in the Starman publicity stunt where Musk sends the Tesla Roadster into space. So many connections here, but I want to keep it focused because they're playing a David Bowie song while this thing is up in space, like on this infinite loop. So Starman is a David Bowie song. A mannequin in a spacesuit dubbed Starman occupies the driver's seat. So Star Child, Starman, very, very interesting. Another very heavy, almost subliminal connection. It's not like Musk is out there explaining the intricacies of the storyline. He's like, oh, it must be real because it looks so fake. Starman is also an anagram for Mr. Satan. David Bowie, man who fell to earth, often seen with the lightning bolt over one eye. Satan falls like lightning. It also has a reference to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't panic on the dashboard. That number 42 has everything to do with that particular movie/book. And falling and Saturn. Reoccurring ideas and meanings attributed to these symbols. But again, he's up there, Starman, David Bowie song playing, connection to David Bowman. So that's why I've been saying for some time that David Bowie's world stage name absolutely corresponds to Kubrick's work. David Bowie is David Bowman. And the merging of the monolith thing, that's us entering the space age. And the space age isn't about going to some far off place. It's about merging with this monolithic system. And that's where the iPhone thing comes into it, and this mass synchronization process. And I was watching the other day. I was watching the process of I had to get a new phone for work. I have an iPhone 13, and so I was having my old phone, iPhone 6, migrate, and it was like watching the soul move from one body into another. All the information, all the pictures, all the text, all the saved data, intangible, just transferring into the other one. And I thought, this is what I'm talking about when I say that you have these things we've been given, more or less, that I think have an esoteric meaning, and that we're being conditioned to accept some new set of beliefs. This is, again, why they reintroduce sin with the virus. They've reintroduced the wrathful flood god with global warming. Everything that we're handed that shapes our worldview has a purpose. And I see the iPhone as a very significant thing. And I'll go into the symbolism inherent in that soon too. All right, let's see here. David Pryor says The Weeknd has a song called Star Boy. Well, let me get to the thelemic side of it. So in the thelemic cult, we're talking Aleister Crowley, and thelema is something you cannot separate from the space age, from Elon Musk, from SpaceX, which I think is quite literally space sex, because the whole thing is about fertility. It's Mystery Babylon dressed up as science fiction. But it's an Aleister Crowley quote from one of his books, Every Man and Woman is a Star. And it was talking about how in the New Age, every man and woman would be a star. Make of that what you will. Every man and woman will merge with the monolith and become a star. I thought it might have something to do, possibly with the decentralization of media. But according to this doctrine, it teaches them that everyone will be a god of their own personal, subjective universe. It's a very contradictory philosophy. You know, you'd think it's all libertarian and freedom for everybody, free love, this neo-hippie thing, but it also has a lot of destruction in there because it's a handbook. Their Bible, the thelemic cult, and I bring them up because at the very beginning of NASA, you have L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, you have Marjorie Cameron, Jack Parsons being the American counterpart to Aleister Crowley, where at the very beginning of this, you have the space program being mixed. And here's what they were doing. I think they were taking the technology, the rockets, the idea of outer space, combining it with science fiction and a science fiction religion for the New Age. That's what L. Ron Hubbard was there for. Scientology is really no different from the space religion that NASA has given us. Same creator. And then you throw in Jack Parsons' input, and that would be Mystery Babylon in its new form, the New Age movement, mixing it in with science fiction. And then Marjorie Cameron, movie star, throw that element in, and you have your pageantry. Movie magic, rockets, and a cult. And it kind of gets to the core of what NASA's actually about. The pageantry for Mystery Babylon. And this is what William Cooper really understood. Tominoid says Bowie also plays Tesla. Yeah, that's also very significant. Tesla Roadster, he plays Tesla. No coincidences there. Jack Parsons is someone we'll have to look deeper into. Someone suggested he might have been reincarnated, or rather brought back, as Howard Hughes. If you haven't seen Strange Angel on ABC, I kind of recommend it. And Howard Hughes does look like an older Jack Parsons, especially here. I'm going to pull up an image of Jack Parsons. And by the way, one other side note here. There are so many excellent, interesting tangents you can go into with any of these characters. Marjorie Cameron, who was there with L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons, who looks exactly like Howard Hughes. Jack Parsons, supposedly another fiery death connected with the space program, like the first man in space, the Apollo 1 guys, the Challenger. Yeah, this guy supposedly died in a fiery explosion in his laboratory at 37. Very significant symbolism there. Looks very similar, though, to Howard Hughes. But he was there with L. Ron Hubbard and Marjorie Cameron, movie star, and an artist. And she was in movies by Kenneth Anger, who co-founded the Church of Satan. Significance there, Kenneth Anger was a Mickey Mouseketeer. So you got a Mickey Mouseketeer turned Satanist movie maker who is in the same circle as L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, who were instrumental in this, I believe, in this space age religion and how it was created. I mean, this is how the guy, Kenneth Anger, also wrote a book about Hollywood. He called it Hollywood Babylon, explicitly stating that Hollywood is the pageantry of Mystery Babylon for the New Age. Well, anyway, Marjorie Cameron was the one involved in this three-way relationship with Parsons and Hubbard. She's the woman in red who's represented in Vanilla Sky that sells him on LE, or life extension. And LE, you'll find the symbolism here to be very consistent. LE happens to be the name of the AI goddess in the more recent Netflix series, The 100, who decides to nuke the world but beam our minds up into this place called the City of Light. Anyway, one other thing about Marjorie Cameron here is that before Roswell, when you had the UFO crash in Corona Field in Roswell, before that, the first UFO sighting, the first reporting, was actually by Cameron, Marjorie Cameron. And this was a year before that. And of course, she was involved with the occult, the idea of summoning things. And here we go. In the late 40s, here we go. Lots of UFO sightings, black magic, religious cults forming. There, through a chance encounter with an old Navy acquaintance, 23-year-old Marjorie Cameron was led to the home of Jet Propulsion Laboratory rocket scientist Jack Parsons in Pasadena. It's also worth noting that the film she was in with Kenneth Anger, inauguration of the Pleasure Dome, it's all about the New Age. And that's my whole point. New Age, new religion, new paradigm, new concept of heaven, new concept of transcendence. And it's the same old, just dressed up with science. And that's why I'm bringing this thing up about how we're being conditioned to accept certain things, like this materialistic version of reincarnation and of souls. That, oh yeah, your soul could just be uploaded into an app. Give me a break. Just another false promise by another false religion. Tominoid 2 says, producer-designer Nathan Crowley works on all of Chris Nolan's films. And he is a descendant of Aleister Crowley. Interesting. Yeah, David Pryor says, Hughes totally looks like Parsons. I think so. Yeah, the 37 is something of an anagram or ambigram. You can also get LE. You can also get 7-3. So I said Jack Parsons dies at 37 in a fire. Vanilla Sky, LE. Again, the 3 is an E, the 7 is an L. You can also get 7-3 or L, L, we mentioned before, Shining One, Saturn. LE or EL may also be 7-3, which is 73 seconds, or 113, the time that the Challenger exploded. And 113 is the time that Apollo 1 exploded. A lot of fiery explosions connected to 3-7. Also, interestingly enough, the Russian film that was shot on the ISS last summer was called The Challenge, very close to the Challenger. The director was 37. I thought they were going to blow it up then. Tominoid says, Nolan's brother co-created the West World Series. The Westworld series is endlessly fascinating in this context because we're talking about another example of this Saturnian matrix, the world being some kind of a prison that involves some controllers that keep us in a cycle. And as long as we don't have a continuity, as long as we have amnesia between each cycle, they can stay in control. Westworld has a lot of tie-ins to the real life of the main character, Dolores. So Dolores is the main character in Westworld, and she's confronting the Man in Black. In the real world, Evan Woods, the actress, is confronting Marilyn Manson. Much in the same way, this kind of Persephone-type character in a prison who has to rise like a phoenix and escape. It's a recurring story. They put Ed Harris, the guy who played the Christoph in Truman Show, as the Man in Black that she must defeat. This would be Hades. This would be the Lord of the Underworld that kidnaps her. It's also a significant, and the name that it would be Dolores, because Dolores is the name of the girl in the Kubrick film Lolita. Now, Dolores Hayes, Dolores Lolita. Well, Marilyn Manson's girlfriend Evan Wood played Dolores Hayes in the video Heart-Shaped Glasses. So she actually plays a character named Dolores, where she supposedly got raped on camera by Marilyn Manson. Then she confronts this Man in Black in the movie named Dolores. And she same name. And then she's wearing a blue dress that reminds me of Dorothy from Wizard of Oz, confronting her own Man in Black archetype, this demiurge controlling wizard type who rules through fear and deception. Going through your comments here. Hey, here's an interesting little connection, a little side note here. If you take the time to watch Evan Woods' documentary Phoenix Rising, she says the very first thing that Marilyn Manson said to her was, "Don't fall." And the 1 hour and 13 minute long documentary, part 113, Phoenix Rising. Another connection to this, Phoenix, fiery death, 113. So her documentary, part 1, is 1 hour 13 minutes, Phoenix Rising. She claims the first thing he said to her was, "Don't fall." Well, if she's playing the role of Persephone, Persephone falls into the underworld on the date that they found Gabby Petito, on the 22nd, when we enter the fall, after the equinox. So when he said, "Don't fall," yeah, that's just part of the plot. That's Hades saying to Persephone, "You're going into the underworld. You're coming with me." Kind of a, again, continuation of the story with Brian Laundrie brainwashing Gabby and kidnapping her. And this is also, I think, kind of interesting that Manson's real name is Brian Warner. The Brian brainwashing connection there is kind of noteworthy, I think. Like, this Brian Laundrie character is a complete creation. The whole story was. This Persephone thing is also, again, very noteworthy that it happens now at this time because of this Pluto return event. And then you have, of course, Manson, Charles Manson, and Marilyn Manson. Lots of interesting connections there that would connect 1969 to 2021. A repeating theme, if you look at how much of 2021 was just a repetition of 1969, including with the space races and launches on anniversary dates. And this is what I mean when I'm talking about these cycles and these repeated stories. It seems like the author of the world stage metascript is the Man in Black. It is this monolith, this black cube. It is this central mind control center where there is some kind of monolithic control over all media, all religions. And if they don't control it, they co-opt it, or they stamp it out, or they censor it, or they demonetize it, or they call it hate. Baja Pickleball says, Barbara Bush was a big dude. You know, I read somewhere that Barbara Bush was the mother of Aleister Crowley. Let me take a look here. Fact check, Barbara Bush is not related to Aleister Crowley. This is USA Today. Now, she may not be, but there is something about her and storing dead babies in jars, isn't there? Have you all read that? Didn't they keep some baby in a jar? Here we go. Barbara Bush on her fetus in a jar story. Yeah, let me go ahead and play this. So I don't think she's related to Crowley. I've seen some memes, and from a certain angle and a certain light, there is a Crowley-esque look to her.
Barbara, George discloses something very personal about you, which he says you gave him special permission to write about. He wrote that when you once had a miscarriage, you showed him the fetus in the jar.
Now, really,
we
the truth
touched
is,
on it before, but we
Paolo
didn't
put
elaborate.
it in a jar.
What?
Paolo, it's not in the library. No,
I know.
George, Paolo put it in a jar, and I was shocked when she gave it to him to, but your memory's dim a little bit, but anyway, but he was
You were
very...
shocked that he put it in the book?
No, he asked permission, and I gave him permission if it's his book. And I think he was trying to say that he and I have a very special relationship. We tease all the time, and that's not very nice for me, but, you know, you got to tease a little bit. And he teases me unmercifully, but we're very...
There you have it. Just a story about a fetus in a jar. Nothing to see here. You know what I find strange is that it just seems like the news used to be weirder. Like, as weird as things are today, I think they used to be weirder, and they're actually walking it back because we can actually talk to one another and say, hey, did you notice something? Yeah. Did you notice something? Yeah. Work66 says Barbara Bush was the son of Crowley. Lean Dion puts her name in semicolons. If you suspect a reptoid, put 3 semicolons before and after their name as a courtesy to warn those who follow after so they know what they're dealing with. And we have a list of reptoids. It's called the green pill. If you haven't taken the green pill, here it is. Although they might be squids. I'm starting to figure this Kraken thing, you know, maybe we're not dealing with reptoids. Maybe reptilian overlords is some kind of misinformation, and that David Icke is just controlled opposition for the squid folk. Alright, we've been talking about a number of things. Let me go through the browser. Mimas and Saturn, the Death Star, bat soup on the quarter in 2020, Omicron, reptoids, Omicron variants with the Russian space junk. Here we go. Jack Parsons is likely Howard Hughes. That is a dead ringer. Jack Parsons probably did not blow up in his laboratory at 37. In all likelihood, he was repurposed and came back as someone equally, I would say, equally kind of eccentric. You go from, I believe they called it the Suicide Club, this eccentric rocket builder, heavily involved in the occult and this new age sex magic thing, and then Howard Hughes. Wouldn't surprise me. I'll continue to look into that. We talked about Leviathan and the significance, of course, of the Kraken as it may relate to that. Also, it's the 110th anniversary of the first Sun King of North Korea, who stole their ruler from above. And it's the 110th anniversary of the Titanic sinking. A couple days before that, we had the anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's fake assassination. I have a lot on that. I'm going to continue to go through my notes. We were talking about the Kraggle last. Oh, by the way, the Pope had a statement here. We are all racists, we are racists, and this is bad. The problem of refugees is a problem that Jesus suffered too because he was a migrant and a refugee in Egypt when he was a child. So the Pope went on and on about this, and this is not insignificant. There's a reason why the Pope wants to say that you're all polluters and that the world is heating up, that you're all super spreaders and you all need to get vaxxed and you're all racist. There's a pattern here. The pattern is the New World Order religion. It requires pretty much these 3 things. You have to believe in the vengeful God and the flood if you don't change your behaviors collectively. You have to believe that you are a super spreader, that you are a sinner, that you spread sin and death unless you get saved. And even if you're saved, you still got to mind your social distancing and wear your religious garment over your face. So they need you to believe in this new concept of sin and the new concept of a wrathful God. But the final nail in this thing is a new concept of inherent evil, something that needs to be addressed philosophically with reflection, not something you can vax away, not something you can regulate away and tax away like global warming. So the original sin in many ways is the racism inherent within Western chauvinism. That's the message here. That's why I Can't Breathe went from George Floyd to the environment, the atmosphere. We can't breathe. It's a continuation of the same story. And they use different stalking horses, they use different smoke screens to push this totalitarian agenda here, the imposition of a new religion, which teaches you self-hate and to listen to your priesthood, your elevated high priests out there who, with their orbiting sky cathedral. But anyway, he's from the old version, but he's helping to pass the torch. His obelisk doesn't fly to heaven. No, you just go pray to it 3 times a day and imagine yourself going to heaven. The new popes, like Pope Musk, yeah, they can actually take you to heaven literally. Their obelisks have engines. Lean Dion says the Pope's fish hat is interesting. Oh yeah, his meter, his fish head hat. Dagon. And speaking of Dagon, let me go ahead and bring this up since we're talking about krakens and so the Pope's hat is a meter. Something's fishy about this entire religion. Something fishy about Western religion. And it is the same as Dagon, the fish god. And then Dagon is also another way of referring to, in many of these movies, it's almost used synonymously with Cthulhu, with this idea of there being some kind of a kraken. So here's another image of it. H.P. Lovecraft, Dagon. Not sure what this means. Is the Pope going to summon the kraken? I think so. Maybe this is the ultimate secret here. Anyway, we'll move on from this. It's just not a coincidence here. It's Mystery Babylon being repurposed. In fact, let me draw this one more analogy here. I think that Dagon is the fish god, and he puts on his magic suit so he can go into the abyss. He can go into the ocean. And you'll see the way they pray with their hands down, like the way Donald Trump prays. He's got his hands pointed down. Yeah, that's because their god is below. And so you got to put on your special fish god hat to go into your heaven, into your abyss. So I think it may be a direct connection here that the astronaut has to wear a fishbowl on his head to go into his special environment. Like, could the astronaut's uniform really just be another holy garment? Absolutely. The mask is a religious garment. Why wouldn't the spacesuit? This is your heaven suit. Your high priests have to wear this to go up there. And so it could be that the space helmet is something like a meter, something like your fish suit. Your suit to go, because now you're amphibious, you live in 2 different environments, just up there rather than down. Anyway, yeah, high priests are now astronauts. No difference. Nothing about them is original. Like, check this out. It turns out that Elon Musk's flamethrowers, not even an original idea. He took that from Spaceballs, admittedly. And the fact that Musk is a fan of Spaceballs tells you something. Erica Bear says, on Good Fridays, you eat fish only. Well, Piscean age. Lean Dion says, oh, no, Repentagram says, Macaulay Culkin has the Crowley-shaped nose. I'll have to take a look. All right, let's move on. Does anybody here think I'm off with the idea that the astronauts are your new elevated high priests? Also found something else out that's noteworthy. We were talking about Vulcan, the blacksmith. Vulcan, the husband of Venus. So Venus is being offended in the form of Jada by Chris Rock, so Vulcan slaps him. Slaps Chris Rock, who's probably playing the role of, I don't know, Zeus maybe. I mean, who is it in that play? The idea, though, in this play is that Venus is being insulted and Vulcan defends her and gets kicked out of Olympus. So it's Will Smith gets kicked out of the Oscars. But anyway, I was looking into this, and Vulcan is actually a major character in the Masonic rituals. So they refer to him as, listen to this, Tubal Cain. It says, since the beginning, it says, they're talking about the great work. Now, this is noteworthy too. This is about Freemasons and their symbolism here. Tubal Cain is the widow's, listen to this, Tubal Cain is the widow's son, the original sharpener. In more modern times, most recent translations of the Bible, we find he morphs from being one who sharpens to the forger. So it's talking about this character, Tubal Cain, being this blacksmith. But anyway, according to Albert Mackey, Masonic historian, he says, Tubal Cain is the Vulcan of the pagans. So just an interesting connection here, because that happens to be one of their major passwords, Tubal Cain, a reference to Vulcan. I found this interesting article about this topic, though, and it actually has some connections here worth looking into if you want to go into that particular event, that aspect of that event, the Venus Vulcan thing. And of course, Will Smith is not a blacksmith, but he is a smith and he is black. And this is the type of coded language they use here. And listen to this word here, this phrase, great work. It says, a simple goal to place an end to the endless wars and human misery that have plagued the planet for thousands of years, through a coordinated effort of like-minded brothers, where the purpose of our great work was to help create a world that was unified. So this idea of a great work unifying the world is inherent within this Masonic story, but also the Thelemic cult, Jack Parsons, Aleister Crowley, they call it the great work. The great work is actually encoded into the title of their main book. Their main book talks about the New Age. It's called the Book of the Law, or Liber 418, which they say 418, it translates into this thing called the Great Work. Kind of like the Great Awakening. Kind of like the Great Reset. And so, when Greta came out, I was like, wow, that's interesting. Greta comes out as the book almost predicted, this Book of the Law, written in 1984. It predicted this crowned conquering child, the New Age child, and that the New Age child would be androgynous, and that they would call out the old traditions, down with Christianity, down with Islam, down with everything, and in with this new age, this new system. So the Great Reset is really the mission of the Thelemite cult, of the Masonic cult. And Greta, anagram great, the Greta Reset, Great Reset, not a coincidence. When you actually listen to what the Great Reset is about, yeah, it's a green world order. It's all about this one world unity. That's why America is such a problem here. America with its polluting, with its racism, with its anti-vaxxers because of its free speech. Those are the obstacles that are in the way of the great work. The Great Reset. Again, it's an old mission. Eric of Bear says, Widow's Son is the name of a Freemason motorcycle gang. The hands up, don't shoot gesture is a reference to the Widow's Son. That's how I knew the whole BLM thing was a Masonic psyop. Hands up, don't shoot. You're all familiar with that. Then you look at is there no help for the Widow's Son? And this is the Masonic distress, and it's hands up, don't shoot. Same exact symbol. The kneeling has very special significance. The summer of 2020 was fascinating because we were just watching secret societies manipulating their legions of useful idiots and stooges. All right, let's go ahead and continue. We're talking about the ISS coming down very soon. I'm more certain of this than ever. Here's a nice meme. Stanley Kubrick directed the moon landings. NASA astronaut, NASA advisor, sci-fi author Arthur C. Clarke Then there's Kubrick. Then there's George Mueller, the senior administrator for the Apollo project. So this is a meeting in 1965. Does this prove anything? Guilt by association? I would say this is unexplainable if he had nothing to do with it. Like, I think it's pretty obvious. It's such an obvious thing. We talked about Elon Musk and the $42 billion attempt to buy Twitter, but then it changed. Look at these headlines from 9 hours ago. What else could Elon Musk buy for $43 billion? Elon Musk goes hostile with $42 billion bid. Musk offers to acquire Twitter, $42 billion. How do you miss a whole billion? Another reference again to the Boston bombing light from the other day. The whole thing was a hoax. We know this. It's been exposed. If you think it's real, then you didn't do your homework. And it's not very advanced in terms of an auto hoaxing situation. It's not that hard to discern. You can even find videos with certain characters in red hoodies smashing squibby blood bags on the floor. Like, it's all theatrical. It's like a flash mob. But anyway, I was talking about how the Boston bomber got his death penalty reinstated the day the Batman movie came out on 3/4, March 4th. And then we have this new terrorist, just as the new Batman movie comes out, and he's been correlated with the Riddler from the new Batman movie. Anyway, he's been described as a smirking terrorist in some of these tabloids. And I saw his smirking face, and I thought, wow, he's got the same smirk as the Joker. Heath Ledger Joker. And the Son of Sam. Probably not a coincidence. These are made-for-TV villains. But again, just take a look at his face. Even a little wink there. Looks quite a lot like the Heath Ledger era Joker. And he's in front of a brick wall, very masony. When the pudgy, and they use the word pudgy, which I believe is the word they also used for the Son of Sam. In fact, oh no, this was the Son of Sam one. They also called him smirking, though. So this is the smirking terrorist, Frank James, and then Son of Sam, the pudgy, smirking shooter, outside his Yonkers apartment in July of 1977. Now, what's interesting about the Son of Sam event, and that's why I think this also might be significant here, is the Son of Sam event was 1977 during blackouts on 42nd Street. And the movie about Son of Sam, SOS, was filmed by Spike Lee. So you have Spike Lee does a movie about the summer of 77. He did a movie about the summer of 68 and 2020, The Five Bloods. So there's a fascinating connection here, though, because 42nd Street is where we had these two historic blackouts. One, July 13th, 1977, and that's when the Son of Sam was doing his thing. And the other, July 13th, 2019, 42 years later to the day from 42nd Street on, put 42,000 plus in the dark. Interestingly enough, Chesley Christ jumped from the Orion building, and to the Egyptians, Orion is Osiris. Beauty Queen jumped from an Orion building in January, landed on 42nd Street. So I'm like, that's interesting. Chesley Christ lands on 42nd Street after jumping from a building, and she hit the ground, according to TMZ, at 7:13 a.m. So I'm like, this is an interesting tie-in here, just a side note, but it does connect to a bigger story here, where 42, that's the street. 7:13 is the date of these historic blackouts. She hits the ground 7:13. 77 blackout, subject of a movie by Spike Lee. And during this event, Spike Lee was spotted hanging out with Colin Kaepernick because they're working on a documentary. Significance there, she's a co-star of Kaepernick in Colin in Black and White. And you'll see when we dig into this particular story about this beauty queen jumping from a high-rise. And it's all about, I think, Miss USA falling. I think this is all connecting to this bigger story of U.S. burning. And if you recall, the Burning Man festivals were bookended by actual burning men in front of the White House. So in 1986 and 2019, you had these individuals set themselves on fire in front of the White House. And the more recent one, the 2019 White House Burning Man, he was wearing a shirt that says, and here's a picture of it, USA. I'm like, this is interesting. A guy with a USA shirt burning in front of the White House with the obelisk in the back, which is really no different from their ritual catharsis at the mall, which they do every May, where they do a Burning Man in front of the obelisk. But I see the USA shirt, USA burning, and this is in 2019. And I watched the video, and on the video there's a bus that passes in front of the camera. Happens to be bus number 113. So as I've mentioned several times tonight, the 113 is constantly being associated in major world news events with burning Phoenix, with this constant symbol. And so I'm looking at this here as hoaxy as heck. Now again, this happened 33 years prior to this event as well. And the guy who burned himself to death is 33 years old. Look, he was 33 years old. His family reported him missing on Wednesday. And if you're not overdosing on coincidences right now, as I kind of am, this was the 33rd year of the Burning Man festivals there at Black City Rock, Nevada. And at the end of this 33rd Burning Man festival in Black Rock City, they found a dead body of a guy who happened to be 33. And there's about 3 other events that happened at that time I could cite, but I'm not going to because I'm overdosing on these patterns, these coincidences. 737 has joined us, had made it to the live. Yeah, get on the text alert. If you have not, get on text message alerts. Get on the newsletter. Faye's Polarizer said the smiling assassin. Is that what they called him? I mean, the Son of Sam and the Joker, the Boston Bomber, and this guy, they're all part of the same story. These are archetypes. These are typecasts. Not even a believable villain if you listen to him. Now, I said that the Batman movie was going to precede white nationalist violence, just like the Joker movie preceded left-wing violence, which the media doesn't report on, obviously. Now listen to this. Germany foils anti-lockdown protester plot to kidnap health minister, launch bomb attacks, and spark a civil war to overthrow the country's democratic system. Far-right United Patriots. So this is in Germany. My point being, the far right is going to be the center stage of any kind of major psyops this summer, in my opinion. And I'm basing this solely on the pattern with these Batman Joker movies and what they truly represent. And I think they represent the intentional infliction of a state of panic so that we call for the SWAT team, the Batman. We call for the Big Brother lockdown. By the way, the accused subway shooter was a DoorDasher. Imagine that. The guy dropping off your tacos is a racist maniac waiting to go on a killing spree. Let's see. Alex Jones getting drunk and painting rocks. You know, Alex Jones made a reference to himself being Bill Hicks. Let me go ahead and play this. He does this all the time. Like, nobody would know he was Bill Hicks.
The point is that that group never is austere themselves.
So this is getting drunk and painting rocks, which is a great idea for a program. It's not a bad interview.
So you can't have people that have all the money telling us we got to be austere, but then they're not.
Who would you hate to see naked?
Okay, here it is. Who would you hate to see naked? And listen to his answer.
Probably myself. No, I would hate to see Bill Gates naked.
I knew you were going to say that somehow. I knew that. Yeah, it was good. Who would you like?
Oh, he said Bill Gates. I thought he said Bill Hicks. Okay. Now, he did make a Bill Hicks reference in another part here, but I thought he said Bill Hicks naked. He said Bill Gates, which I agree, wouldn't want to see Bill Gates naked. Anyway, I'll put a link if you want to watch it. Whether you think he's Bill Hicks or you know he's Bill Hicks, or whether you think you just like the Super Male Vitality commercials, there's a link. I find his channel to be very annoying with commercials, repetitive with the sales pitches, and I think that might be part of the psyop, to throw people off. So it's like, oh, I'm going to go deeper into the news. Mainstream news is boring. Let me go where this guy is. And you're like, oh, it's just a bunch of commercials. It's a bunch of snake oil. So if you're not into snake oil, if you just want information, good luck. You're just finding a guy who's just running, he's just carrying water for the Republicans when it comes down to it. All right, let's see here. Elon Musk to acquire Twitter for 42 billion. So which is it? 42 billion or 43? 737 says yes, he admitted to the conspiracy about Bill and him. Yeah, that's been admitted a few times. Many times. To me, it's not a conspiracy theory, it's an observation, and it just shows you where we are in the world, where some jaw-dropping revelation that ought to really shake your foundations if you really think about the deeper implications of deep faking, how it just goes by unnoticed. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. What difference does it make? This is Brave New World. 1984, they strip away all the information, unless they control it. Brave New World, oh, there's so much information it loses its relative value. Nothing means anything more than anything else. Armin Ra said, Stephen Hawking, interesting. He says, I can add perhaps the best Metascript couple for Hephaestus and Gaia are Stephen Hawking and the Sophia robot. Hawking, like Hephaestus, is a deformed genius kicked out of Olympus. I could see that, and Sophia the robot is something like Gaia. They're merging these ideas. Here's some more Metascript for you. So, the actress that was near Abraham Lincoln when he was shot in the Ford Theater has blood on her dress. So again, Ford Theater, Lincoln's blood. Actress's bloody dress from the president's assassination is for sale. Okay, and now let's compare this to Jackie Kennedy. One of the images we got of Jackie Kennedy after the assassination, walking around with a, let's see if I can find the bloody dress. So many parallels. Ford Lincoln, covered in Kennedy blood. Ford Theater, covered in Lincoln blood. This Lincoln-Kennedy connection is huge. Whatever happened to Jackie Kennedy's pink suit? Just another one of these interesting parallels. The Kennedy and Lincoln assassination parallels are pretty well known. Some of them are a little, it depends. Some of them are something of a stretch, but many of them are pretty solid, I think. But that was from April the 14th. That was that repeat. That anniversary, that hoax anniversary. Shock poll, Biden approval crashes to 33. Notice he's got his hand on his head. I check out the Drudge Report just for the imagery, whatever images they're putting out there, just because of how big of a platform they are. It's important to keep an eye on the big memes that are being pushed. Not quite sure what that one means yet, but he's touching his head, which makes me think about his cognitive decline, which is probably all fake. I mean, it's a staged cognitive decline, or maybe he's a robot. In fact, here's a video here where I was thinking maybe they've got some augmented virtual reality lenses on the guy, and he's seeing people that aren't there. Because here's Biden, after his speech, turning around and shaking hands with people that only he can see, apparently. So there's Joe Biden, shaking hands, shaking hands. I mean, what do you make of this? He even opens his eyes wide, makes eye contact. Hand is open. It reminds me of astronauts on the ISS. You hand them a microphone and they grab the air and they start talking into the air. Like the microphone's there. They grab a hat from you, but they haven't actually reached the hat, but they act like they have and they put it on the shelf. So this is very typical of Biden now. Yeah, I'm thinking he's already been metaversed. Who knows what he's seeing, but he's certainly seeing somebody there in front of him. A weird Matt Gaetz rap video came out. I watched it. MAGA raps come out whenever there's an election coming up. Super cringe, but cringe rap is a thing. Alex Stein has effectively boosted his career. Like the guy's made for. He's going to be a staple of mainstream news, I think, forever now, because of his cringe rapping. Well, here's a cringe rap called Matt Gaetz by Forgiato Blow. And this is being ridiculed, obviously, because it's a rap about Matt Gaetz. The unfortunate thing is that Abby Greenberg is in the video.
Get trained in less than a year at Universal.
Now, Abby Greenberg is the wife of Matt's friend, Joel Greenberg, the wingman, the guy that was procuring the 17-year-olds for him. So here you have this politician, hooking up with high school students. And that guy was indicted. And this could all be fake. This guy was charged, Joel Greenberg. Check this out. This is why I think it all could be staged and fake. Greenberg faces 33 charges. Stalking, identity theft, sex trafficking. Why 33? But anyway, that guy's wife is in this music video called Matt Gaetz. I'll play about 20 seconds of it. Just cringe rap. It's huge. I'm on the right.
Tell these snowflakes I'm like Matt Gaetz of Madison called on. Tell these bums come and take my guns, it's uncalled for. Jumped it 4 years in the office, he ain't never Star Wars. Y'all living in a fantasy like this shit is Star Wars. Spazzing on these snowflakes like Matt Gaetz in my race. Mac a rap.
Like Matt Gaetz. And he even alludes to Matt Gaetz growing up in the Truman Show house.
He's a Florida legend, he was born up in that Truman house.
Born up in that Truman house, which makes him extremely credible, right? Zinvella says auto-tune is still cool. Yeah, it is. There's going to be more of this. This is Forgiato Blow. The reactions to this are great, too. But it's all straight-faced. It's all serious. They're legitimately rapping about Matt Gaetz. And about
Matt is great. I'm in a Matt Black raid with the
Matt Gaetz is great, even though his best friend is charged with 33 counts of sex trafficking. One of them being a 17-year-old, which they don't see as ironic. Q, 17. He's the major Q guy. Like, I call him Matt Pizza Gaetz for a reason. All right. I'll go through some more of these headlines really quick here. The GOP is now a dime store front for a terrorist organization called MAGA. Again, Batman movie predicted it. We're looking forward to a summer of right-wing violence. The Gathering Storm, the Second Civil War. And do you remember the storm concept? The storm is coming. It really started, if you ask me, with Dylan Storm Roof, the guy who shot up the church, the black church, killed 9. All fake. They took him to Burger King for a Whopper after. Because the story was a Whopper. But Dylan Storm Roof got radicalized from a website called the Storm Front. That's what it was a reference to. White nationalism resurgence continues to shape and shift Michigan and U.S. politics. Similar story like in Germany. Again, all of it is going to be as fake as anything else we've seen, but just a heads up. Let's see. MAGA supporter leaks that Fauci, the Clintons, and Obamas are currently interned at Gitmo. These hopium addicts are not going away. That's one of the reasons why I was following this George News thing today. I was like, what are they still thinking? Do they still believe this stuff? And yeah, it's 100%. The QAnoners believe that JFK is the bloodline of Christ, and he's coming back, and all the bad guys are being rounded up, and that's why it's taking so long, and that they're not going to reveal it until everybody's been caged up, so that there's not some kind of, like this is an operation to beat the deep state once and for all. If you choose to believe any of that. All right, this has been excellent tonight. We will be... It's Saturday night, right? Saturday night. Okay, Infinite Plane Sunday. Tomorrow. We'll be taking calls all day. And also, I'm going to be live tomorrow with JLB and Fakeologist. So I'll be sending out a promotion for that in my email newsletter here shortly. So don't miss that. If you don't want to miss the live talk with myself, Fakeologist, and JLB, get on the newsletter. And feel free to email me or at timmosman007@gmail.com and recommend, suggest any topics, anything you want us to hyper focus on. I will certainly take that into consideration. We're all bringing our bullet points. So it's not going to be a recap of things we've talked about before, but we'll also go into other things as well. I think a lot of people have COVID fatigue. I'm having a lot of anti-vax fatigue. I'm kind of tired of all the iterations, and I think they really bottomed out with this. COVID's caused by snake venom being put into water to turn us into satanic hybrids. Like, they need new material. There's nothing new on that front. And by the way, I can't hand out wrenches on this channel. However, we do have a new channel. So if you want to get in on that new channel, you will get the notification as well if you're on the newsletter. I will be replaying tonight's live stream over on that channel here shortly. And then I guess after this is going to go back to the 24/7 stream. I'll put a link in the chat. Go to infiniteplanesociety.com. Thanks everyone for the support, and we will be live earlier in the day tomorrow. So don't miss. This is 33rd degree. It's 5:30 a.m. Mountain Time, 4/14, 2022. Happy hoax-iversary to the Abraham Lincoln assassination. Happened in the Ford Theater, John Wilkes Booth, all kinds of fakeness. We'll get into that, but today's the anniversary, 4/14, which stands out to me for a few reasons, but I don't know. I'm a little superstitious now. I'm worried that some of my spoilers are going to cause them to change the story right when it's about to get good. So I'm not going to offer any spoilers, but if you've been following this channel, you know why it's very interesting right now that today is the Kennedy assassination, and it's timed at this particular April, this month, which is the month of the 75th anniversary commemoration month of Jackie Robinson, Mr. 42. Then you have the new Supreme Court Justice, and a lot of stuff in the PSYOP entertainment complex pointing towards what I think is going to be a major spectacle coming up. But my only hint here is the Lincoln assassination hoaxiversary might tie into my prediction. But we'll refer back to this here in a bit. We talk a lot about the Occam's razor. That's what cured the Mandela effect for a lot of people. It's an epistemological tool that you use to reduce inane or just nonsensical, illogical explanations in favor of things that are a little more grounded in reality. If you had Occam's razor, you would never arrive at man caused global warming. You would first have to figure out if global warming was a thing. But anyway, the term auto hoax, which means to presuppose that if it's an extraordinary claim and it's fakeable, it's likely to be faked or possibly faked unless it's proven real. That is one such tool, like Occam's razor. Auto hoaxing is just an approach to critically examining the news media so you don't get caught up in any dramas that are supposed to be real, like most people do, and get radicalized by the TV, as most people have been radicalized by the TV. I mean, we saw what happened in 2020 with the big takeover, the new religious cult. But anyway, the opening track, Auto Hoax by Chief Crow, that phrase, if you're not aware of it, to me it's like the only thing that separates someone who's on the world stage from someone who's off is someone who is cognizant of the fact that there is one. And they don't want you to know this. So people get caught up in the drama. They want to follow Elon Musk's war against the man fighting Twitter. It's like, yeah, he's on our side. No, he's going to send you to the Mars dungeons. Let's not forget the Mars dungeons. I'm sorry, Mars bases, progress, right? Even though they're talking about literally building these things out of astrocrete, which is Martian soil mixed with human blood. They mention other body fluids, including sweat. So, it reminds me of the Great Wall of China. I mean, what are they going to do? Put you in a wood chipper? Just spit you out onto the Martian soil and then mold from there? Apparently, it's worse than Soylent Green. Well, maybe not. I mean, they're not eating it. Maybe they will. All right, let's see. Going through your comments. Pete Trippa says, good morning from Boston. Frank Murr's here. Travis Feep, Cubs star. Eric Blair, 1984. Portal Complex, Rourke, 66. Art of Thinking Out Loud. Our calls often get censored by Big Brother. I think so. Meme Control Central. Like, okay, you're going to have to terminate this call. I happen to think that all we're talking about these days is, for the most part, the media's war on the individual. The media is the weapon of the elite. World War III is a war against the individual. And it's about eliminating the concept of individuality. So you see all the drama about minority groups versus this minority group, political identity groups, vying for attention, visibility, and it looks like a good thing, well-intentioned. Let's help the minority groups, the small groups, because of the oppressive big group. But in reality, the smallest minority that never gets any protection at all is and always will be the individual. And that's what they're trying to eliminate. And for the most part, they've done so. They've eliminated the concept from public sight. If you recall, it was, quote, selfish to not wear a mask. Selfish. You still have yourself, your individuality, symbolized by your unique face. Got to get rid of that. All right, also join here with Kevin Mooring says Elon offers to buy Twitter. Right. And he's going to send us to Mars. Like, this is all a trap. It is interesting news, but again, to me, what does it matter anyway? Because the ideas that really matter are the ones that will still be excluded from left or right-leaning platforms. So it was left, now steer it right. Yeah, it's still, they're not going to reveal anything. You think, I mean, we're literally talking about one of the faces of the biggest deception of all. Ground zero for the big deception is this worldview. And they work their way down from there. And you don't have a greater worldview reinforcer than Musk. And I think this is also an important thing that they had to do this. It was crucial because environmentalism is really just a mask for communism. We all know this. Watermelon Marxism, green on the outside, red on the inside. Everybody knows that environmentalism is a stalking horse for the commies. And Greta, for example, she's a communist. She doesn't care about recycling. Maybe she does. Maybe she actually believes it, but that's kind of beside the point. We all know it's a stalking horse agenda. So the right is smart enough to know climate change is a hoax, and it's not legal. Well, it's still legal to say it, but it is prohibited now. You get kicked off of Pinterest if you say climate change is a hoax. If I say Globe's not mad at us and he's not going to send a flood, you don't need an ark. They will literally take me off their page, their whole platform. You will be deplatformed for not believing in Noah's
that you would, like I knew that you would. In my dream, you know I ain't got time, baby, for another crisis actor with swords.
It's 5:30 a.m. Mountain Time, 4/14, 2022. Happy hoax-iversary to the Abraham Lincoln assassination. Happened in the Ford Theater, John Wilkes Booth, all kinds of fakeness. We'll get into that, but today's the anniversary, 4/14, which stands out to me for a few reasons, but I don't know. I'm a little superstitious now. I'm worried that some of my spoilers are going to cause them to change the story right when it's about to get good. So I'm not going to offer any spoilers, but if you've been following this channel, you know why it's very interesting right now that today is the Kennedy assassination, and it's timed at this particular April, this month, which is the month of the 75th anniversary commemoration month of Jackie Robinson, Mr. 42. Then you have the new Supreme Court Justice, and a lot of stuff in the PSYOP entertainment complex pointing towards what I think is going to be a major spectacle coming up. But my only hint here is the Lincoln assassination hoaxiversary might tie into my prediction. But we'll refer back to this here in a bit. We talk a lot about the Occam's razor. That's what cured the Mandela effect for a lot of people. It's an epistemological tool that you use to reduce inane or just nonsensical, illogical explanations in favor of things that are a little more grounded in reality. If you had Occam's razor, you would never arrive at man-caused global warming. You would first have to figure out if global warming was a thing. But anyway, the term auto-hoax, which means to presuppose that if it's an extraordinary claim and it's fakeable, it's likely to be faked or possibly faked unless it's proven real. That is one such tool, like Occam's razor. Auto-hoaxing is just an approach to critically examining the news media, so you don't get caught up in any dramas that are supposed to be real, like most people do, and get radicalized by the TV, as most people have been radicalized by the TV. I mean, we saw what happened in 2020 with the big takeover, the new religious cult. But anyway, the opening track, Auto Hoax by Chief Crow, that phrase, if you're not aware of it, to me it's like the only thing that separates someone who's on the world stage from someone who's off is someone who is cognizant of the fact that there is one. And they don't want you to know this. So people get caught up in the drama. They want to follow Elon Musk's war against the man fighting Twitter. It's like, yeah, he's on our side. No, he's going to send you to the Mars dungeons. Let's not forget the Mars dungeons. I'm sorry, Mars bases, progress, right? Even though they're talking about literally building these things out of astrocrete, which is Martian soil mixed with human blood. They mention other body fluids, including sweat. So, it reminds me of the Great Wall of China. I mean, what are they going to do? Put you in a wood chipper? Just spit you out onto the Martian soil and then mold from there? Apparently, it's worse than Soylent Green. Well, maybe not. I mean, they're not eating it. Maybe they will. All right, let's see. Going through your comments. Pete Trippa says, good morning from Boston. Frank Murr's here. Travis Feep, Cubs star. Eric Blair, 1984. Portal Complex, Rourke, 66. Art of Thinking Out Loud. Our calls often get censored by Big Brother. I think so. Meme Control Central. They're like, okay, you're going to have to terminate this call. I happen to think that all we're talking about these days is, for the most part, the media's war on the individual. The media is the weapon of the elite. World War III is a war against the individual. And it's about eliminating the concept of individuality. So you see all the drama about minority groups versus this minority group, political identity groups vying for attention, visibility, and it looks like a good thing, well intentioned. Let's help the minority groups, the small groups, because of the oppressive big group. But in reality, the smallest minority that never gets any protection at all is and always will be the individual. And that's what they're trying to eliminate. And for the most part, they've done so. They've eliminated the concept from public sight. If you recall, it was, quote, selfish to not wear a mask. Selfish. You still have yourself, your individuality, symbolized by your unique face. Got to get rid of that. Alright, also join here with Kevin Mooring says Elon offers to buy Twitter. Right. And he's going to send us to Mars. Like, this is all a trap. It is interesting news, but again, to me, what does it matter anyway? Because the ideas that really matter are the ones that will still be excluded from left or right-leaning platforms. So it was left, now steer it right. Yeah, it's still, they're not going to reveal anything. You think, I mean, we're literally talking about one of the faces of the biggest deception of all. You know, ground zero for the big deception is this worldview, and they work their way down from there. And you don't have a greater worldview reinforcer than Musk. And I think this is also an important thing that they had to do this. It was crucial because environmentalism is really just a mask for communism. We all know this. Watermelon Marxism, green on the outside, red on the inside. Everybody knows that environmentalism is a stalking horse for the commies. And Greta, for example, she's a communist. She doesn't care about recycling. Maybe she does. Maybe she actually believes it, but that's kind of beside the point. We all know it's a stalking horse agenda. So the right is smart enough to know climate change is a hoax, and it's not legal to, well, it's still legal to say it, but it is prohibited now. You know, you get kicked off of Pinterest if you say climate change is a hoax. If I say Globe's not mad at us and he's not going to send a flood, you don't need an ark. They will literally take me off their page, their whole platform. You will be deplatformed for not believing in Noah's Ark, or the modern equivalent. Brought to you by NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. I mean, what a joke. Again, this is just the encroaching war on free speech and on actually criticizing things. So my point being, the right wing, the capitalists, the ones who still believe in, free speech, private property, gun ownership, yeah, they may reject climate change. They may even reject the science that locked everyone down in 2020. But you know what they don't reject? Outer space. They think that's a victory of free market, free enterprise, market-driven technology, capitalism, progress, technology. Technology as savior has been sold to the political right, and it has the same end goal as the environmentalism. So if you're following Musk, you might as well follow Greta, is my point. Because everything about Musk's agenda goes along with this sustainability, green world order, just another world savior. And it's just amazing how he's a bipartisan savior, because his entire life's work and agenda is reset, post-reset. But his public persona is, oh no, I'm on the right. But people will fall for it. And by the way, I think that his persona is modeled off of Willy Wonka, Iron Man, Tony Stark, and Werner von Braun, possibly his daddy. Now, von Braun did write a book about Elon colonizing Mars. I put out a meme yesterday, which I'm actually using as a basis for one of my short videos. I'll go ahead and put it on the screen. So what I have here just shows that we live in Disneyland. And this is showing that, okay, first of all, we always talk about these things, and you've all probably heard most of these, but this is only a fraction, and seeing them all together is something else altogether. It's kind of jarring. So here you have Saturn's moon, Mimas, looks just like the Death Star. Now that is very significant because Darth Vader is Saturn personified. Then you have Pluto, discovered in 1930. Then you have Pluto the dog, emerged in 1930. And Pluto the dog's silhouette is on the planet Pluto. Then you have Mercury, the planet Mercury, and 3 craters on it that makes Mickey Mouse's head. So you got Mickey Mouse, Pluto, Darth Vader, And then the most distant object ever found is this snowman-shaped rock called Ultima Thule. And it looks exactly like the snowman Olaf from Frozen. And Olaf is named for some place in the far, far north and some snow or some warrior or something associated with the snow. But anyway, moving on, House of Stark on Mars. Again, House of Stark wins the Iron Throne. Very significant when you look into the significance of iron and Mars in the whole Kabbalistic magical system, which also relates to Iron Man. Iron Man being played by Robert Downey Jr., but he based his persona off of Elon Musk. Musk is the guy taking us to Mars. So there's a lot of symbolism here. It's actually a cult. It's witchcraft. It's Kabbalistic magic, etc. But this is just a small sampling. Then you've got the Star Trek logo on Mars, and it's the starship taking us there. And recently, last October, William Shatner, Captain Kirk, went into space. So this is just a sampling of the images and logos on these different planets that show you all these popular cultural tie-ins, entertainment tie-ins. It's all part of this manufactured cartoon universe we live in. All right, let us continue going through your comments here. Angst G says Disney ride to Mars. Yeah, this is where the Willy Wonka aspect comes in. I mean, Musk is a composite character. So he bought Gene Wilder's house. He started a candy company called Boring. He has a tunneling company that bores tunnels beneath the earth. He's talking about sending people to Mars. So tie it all together. Eccentric guy with a glass elevator. That's another thing too. He's got an elevator that shoots you into space. We're talking about Willy Wonka. So he's even got that going for him. But the idea here is Willy Wonka sends you in a tunnel at a high rate of speed to this other world where you got a bunch of Oompa Loompas making candy. In the real world, he's got this tunneling company and he's developing Hyperloop, which is basically what Wonka has, where you can go to these Mars bases and be one of the Emperor Musk's personal candy makers. You can be his Oompa Loomp making candy on Mars. And it's the same thing, whether it's this land that Willy Wonka takes you to or this Mars base. It's basically just a Disneyland, but you don't know it's fake. And it's not a stretch to think that this Truman Show scenario could become a real thing when you realize how it's already a real thing, as evidenced by this meme here. This shows you are already in a metaverse. You are already in a cartoon. We live on planet Disneyland. Waterman Chris says, good morning, thought criminals. Joined also by Salty Siren, Connor G. Yeah, definitely we're thought criminals here. You're a threat actor and a spreader of the new weapon of mass destruction, the new WMD, which is the DMD. No, it's MDM actually. Look how they flipped the W. Weapons of mass destruction, WMD, is now dismiss and malinformation. DHS came up with that. So miss, dis, and malinformation. MDM is the new WDM. They just flipped the W. And we see this quite a lot. It's given away in their obsession with numerology, with word magic. That's what I'm talking about when I say this is all connected to the symbolic system. And these letters are symbols. It's important to keep in mind. They're sigils for all intents and purposes. We've been unmasking. We've been seeing, I think, quite a lot here beneath the surface. As the more we scratched over the last couple of years, the more it's revealed to us that yes, we're not conspiracy theorists. We're actually just making observations that are inconvenient for the powers that be. So we're not conspiracy theorists. We're just noticing things. The news of the last few days has been the subway bombing. This guy's supposed to be 5'5", but here he towers over that cop. And I find it also very peculiar that he's got his hat on, his black hat, which makes me think he's a black hat FBI agent, that it's totally hoaxed. I don't have any reason to think it's real. In fact, we have plenty of evidence to suggest it's not. Everything here is staged. The person that caught him was Zach, some guy named Zach. I mean, we could really dissect these pictures. Is it a coincidence that there's certain letters and numbers? Probably not. But I'm looking at the most blatant things. The main thing, well, first of all, the New York City mayor came out and said Frank James is no longer a suspect. Well, now he's been arrested for it. A lot of the pictures look staged. Here's one where he's in front of a brick wall. You'll find a lot of these patsies that are actually agents. These aren't real patsies. These aren't innocent people. These aren't mentally ill people that get caught up in some kind of psyop. No, he's an actor. He's a terrible actor. This guy is a crisis actor. But you notice the sly wink in front of the brick wall. Basically a nod so the people in the know what they're looking at. Now, I called this thing Boston Bombing Light before it started, and here's where it also has a Batman tie-in. So I mentioned how on 3/4, the new Batman movie came out, and the new Batman movie is about the Riddler. The Riddler is like this right-wing extremist, kind of a QAnon. They call him the Riddler for the QAnon age, and he's got 500 subs on one of his channels. This guy has 500 subs on one of his channels, and he's got an internet presence. He's called the Prophet of Doom. Now, the interesting thing here is the day the Batman movie comes out, Joker, or Dzhokhar Sarnath, Joker, they called him the Joker. The Joker, who did the Boston bombing, had his death penalty reinstated the day Batman came out. So you have this Batman-Joker dynamic that they always put out there. You have the Chaos Agents, then you have the Order. Well, interestingly enough, I'm like, wait, are they going to do another Boston bombing because they're bringing this character back? And that whole situation with Joker, the bomber, and the police response, where the police come out dressed up like Batman with their SWAT team costumes, yeah, it's all elaborately staged. And it does correspond with the movies. Everything we're seeing in the movies, for the most part, has some kind of real-time correspondence with the news, if you notice the news cycles. Same thing with the Will Smith slap. We were talking about how there were many things that correlated that slap to Will Smith's character in King Richard, to the Supreme Court drama that had correspondences to the tennis court drama in the movie. These things are part of the same influence operation. So the fact that we have a Batman Boston bombing tie-in at the time, and then another Batman Boston bombing tie-in, not insignificant. This is also the month of the Boston bombing. So this happens, Boston bombing light, and this character, he calls himself the Prophet of Doom. Prophet of Doom. All kinds of 88s are on his usernames. Prophet 88, etc. 88 is a white power thing. It's Hail Hitler. 88, 8H. Then you got Honk Honk. Remember that in Canada? The truckers, they said, oh, Honk Honk is Hail Hitler. So it's kind of strange. You know, I don't know what their agenda is specifically with this one. He doesn't fit in with the BLM, with the NOI. He doesn't fit in with any organized kind of group along racial lines. He's kind of a libertarian, I thought, listening to him. He does have some interesting ideas, but like I'm saying, he seems like he's a composite, and the main agenda, in my opinion here, is to demonize YouTubers. YouTubers with conspiracy commentary. And a couple of times I saw mentions of conspiracy commentary. By the way, does anybody know how many shots this guy fired? If you've been following this channel, you should know this without even reading the story. You should already know that, oh yeah, a single shoe, lanyards, water bottles, like some people holding phones up to their ears and crying for the camera. Like, you know it's a hoax. You know what you're going to see every single time. Yes, 33. Restless Bear says 33. Deadbeat Daddy Minneapolis says 33. That's correct. 33 times. I'm just watching this TV show on Netflix called The Order, about a secret society within a university, Sigma Sigma Delta. And Sigma Sigma looks kind of like a 33, and the Delta is the triangle. And in the very first episode, there's a scene where the father, who's this older, conservative-like guy, says something to his son about crisis actors at school. And his son holds up a knife and says to his father or grandfather, say crisis actor again, I dare you. I remember when that clip came out, where you have this old versus young, and the young setting the old straight, whether it's with guns, whether it's with climate change, just another pattern, another bit of propaganda that I see. And I watch all this stuff because I'm studying the propaganda. I'm actually reading the future, to be quite honest. A gunman fired 33 shots on a subway train in Brooklyn, New York. And we've got more. We have evidence that one of the ladies that jumped out of the subway is later posing in front of a fire truck with a big 911 behind her. And then later, you see her on a stretcher, and someone else is carrying her purse, but it's given away by her shoes. So we have almost like a Waynell Sexton, but instead of being spread out across 4 or 5 different events, we have one person playing multiple roles in this one event. They must have been short-staffed. We also have evidence of blood bags, squibs, being squashed by the individuals in the orange hoodies. So you got these individuals with hoodies who are doing the blood bags and doing the photography. Then you have this lady in a maroon, like duster, a big maroon trench coat, and she comes out dripping blood on the floor. I mean, this thing was obviously a hoax, and none of the cameras were working on the subway at that time. What does that tell you? It's a closed movie set. Every bit of footage that you saw that was released was from somebody part of the production. It's important to know. You were seeing a production. There are no witnesses on these productions. Every witness that you see, every witness that talks to the media, is someone who is part of the operation. Jared Board says Riddler followers do a mass shooting after he gets taken into Arkham. Right, fascinating. Restless Bear says the Joker movie had a subway shooting. True. So the Joker movie actually starts off, the revolution kicks off with him shooting these rich bastards on a subway train. Kill the Rich was one of the subtexts of that movie. And we'll get into the Snake Venom script a little bit. I think it's a Poe. I think it's a PSYOP. I think these guys are just working to try to take down channels like this who have legitimate observations. Tim uses the headlines as tarot cards for society's future, says Deadbeat Daddy Minneapolis. It's true. You really can. The Economist told you everything. And when you really look at the metascript of it all, the big picture, the Cold War was always the subversion of the entire world through giving it the perception that it has a cold, making it sick, using the medical system for the ultimate incursion into personal privacy, into everything, into total regulation. They got beneath our skin. All right, so look at this here, just a side note. The other day somebody mentioned that Gilbert Gottfried supposedly died. And I said I'm not giving him any of my loosh because too many comedians have been dying lately. And here you've got this interesting coincidence. So you've got Bob Saget dies, then you got Gilbert Gottfried, and then you have Norm Macdonald. And these deaths are separated by 3 months and 3 weeks, 3 months and 3 days. You can look at the dates here. September 14th, January 9th, January 9th to April 12th. So there's a little bit of interesting timing with these, suggesting that they're all part of the same club, making their exits. Again, 33 bullets were fired. Who counts? And do we have any audio of this? I don't think so. And by the way, yesterday, well, today again is the hoaxiversary of the Abraham Lincoln assassination. Yesterday was the birthday of David Hogg, who actually posted something about how weird it is growing up with FBI agents as parents, and that his parents had probably done some really crazy stuff and it's turned him into a conspiracy theorist. I mean, obviously, maybe he's doing cover. I mean, people have noted some things. His father, the LAX, he was there during a major PSYOP there. Okay, let's see. JT33 says 10,000 cameras and no video footage. It's so common with all of these events. No video footage except for the ones that, except for the footage that was leaked to us. And the stuff they leaked was pretty bad, as you will see. By the way, the guy who's talking about the snake venom that the vaccines are turning people into hybrids of Satan and all that stuff, one of the persons putting it out is Stu Peters. And Stu Peters checks all the Illuminati boxes. So if anybody's following this person, you should ask, what's with the all-seeing eye, Masonic symbolism, the checker, the 666, etc. I mean, to me, this is just too obvious. I mean, trust who you want to trust. The idea that Alex Jones is the paragon of truth, and if you can reach that platform, you've somehow made it, is interesting to me. I think it's cool that people get on that platform, and I'm happy for people going InfoWars. I don't care. I'm just saying, let's not pretend it's something it's not. You can go up there and go onto a totally controlled platform. It's the same with MSM. I think it's important to get as high up as you can, but there's a certain amount of compromise. There are things you can't say. It is inherently a gate-kept platform. But anyway, I'm just bringing this up because I was watching a short clip of Alex Stein hosting InfoWars, and he's pushing Sex Scoop, which, again, I have nothing against Gwyneth Paltrow's Sex Scoop or male vitality or whatever, but it's just been such a long time since InfoWars has done anything on the side of, quote, truth. They backed off on Sandy Hook, but even before that, he is a moon landing believer. Alex Jones is a 100% moon landing believer, and he bears false witness. He claims he and his son looked through a camera, through a telescope, and actually saw the trails left behind by the little moon rover, which was obviously some remote controlled car if you watch the footage. JT33 is correct. 10,000 cameras, 472 substations, and all were operational except for the 3 cameras at that location. What are the odds? You see what I mean? We're not conspiracy theorists here. We are making observations. Alright, let us continue here. If you're looking at the screen, I just want to back up what I was showing you about that one person in question. So on the right, you see the person crying on camera. Note the shoes, note the bag. These crisis actors get paid pretty well. I mean, these are some nice clothes. Behind her has the 9/11/01 Twin Tower image. The same thing that the shooter was in front of when he was talking. Now you have the same person. She was the one that ran out of the subway cart. So she was there at the very beginning, and then she's there posing after. Now you look at here on the left, and it's the same actress. Someone else is holding her bag. And look at the shoes, same person. So what does this mean? It means that she got a lot of coverage that day and did a lot of things, and somewhere got injured. Can't really tell when or where. She decided she needed the ride to the hospital. Another one here. No blood on the floor. This almost looks like a rehearsal scene. So here's a scene from the event, bloodless. This is before they come in with the blood bags, the guys with the hoodies who step on the blood bags. This is all squibs. Also notice the Starbucks next to that same large purse, and the Starbucks cup is vertical. If I exit a subway where there's just been a bomb and 33 bullets fired, I'm going to drop my coffee. Trust me. Especially if I'm hit and I'm falling onto the ground. Eric Blair says, can't trust Alex. You can trust Alex Jones, but you have to trust that he's Bill Hicks playing the role of Alex Jones. So the bigger question here isn't is he or isn't he Alex Jones, Bill Hicks. We've already figured this out. The actual question should be, what is in the script for Alex Jones? And this was revealed years ago, back when Bill Hicks handed over a script to his producer Kevin Booth before he died. Kevin Booth was then the producer of Alex Jones, and the script was a Rush Limbaugh type, a little more extreme, who gets killed at the end of his run by one of his own listeners. So that hasn't happened yet, but that's the script. Travis Claude says, ever since Alex Stein went on Alex Jones, I trust Alex Jones. Well, I'd be curious to know if it's Stein, by the way. That's a Mandela effect if you're calling him Stein. I wouldn't think he would do it, but it'd be interesting to see if Alex Stein could ask Owen Schroyer, come on, man, are you or are you not the QAnon shaman? Because if you're not, you should be him for Halloween, because you guys look identical. Every time I see Owen Schroyer, I mentally put a red, white, and blue filter over his face, and some horns, and I see the QAnon shaman. It is the same guy. Victoria Pandora says they said everyone's radio was down too. Right, look, this is such a obvious hoax, but look at the code here. Federal prosecutors wasted no time charging James, 62, with terror-related offenses for firing 33 rounds on the N train. Monday morning, another 19 were injured. So 19 is a key number with all these order out of chaos events. 33. I mean, it's pretty blatant here. We are very PSYOP literate. Some people might doubt it at first and say, well, shouldn't we just give the news media the benefit of the doubt? I mean, people are crying. It's like, no. I mean, we don't have any evidence that they've ever told the truth first on something extraordinary. Why would we give them that benefit of the doubt now? Okay, Armin Ross says, have you noticed the biblically relevant link of the 500 subs the shooter had? Now, this is tying into the Riddler had 500 subs. The shooter has 500 subs. So this commenter references biblical verse Corinthians 15, which actually mentions somebody named James. So this guy is named Frank James. For I delivered to you as of first importance what I received, that Christ died for our sins in accordance with the Scriptures and was raised on the third day. And here we are in Holy Week, by the way. Then he appeared to 500 brothers at one time. Okay, very interesting. There's a number 500 associated with the resurrection. These stories have multiple layers to them. The Will Smith slap could be looked at as Venus being defended by Vulcan, who then gets kicked off of Olympus for defending Venus from the advances of Zeus or whatever. Also note here, the 5'5" shooter with the black hat on. I don't know how he put the hat on with the handcuffs. But notice they're walking by the pyramid, the blue shirt, very Masony. There is a number 17 in the background, and there is an N right there, and it was the N train. What does that mean? I don't know. These are sigils, these are symbols. I look at the patterns. Could be something to it. I mean, he's not a QAnoner, but the 17 thing does tie in to the Q thing, which is basically people who are radicalized against the great Satan. And there are some things, I have seen some news media outlets making correlations between the two, which we'll get into. Let me go through some of these headlines, and starting again, today John Wilkes Booth shoots Abraham Lincoln in 1865. Many, many interesting connections between the Lincoln and the Kennedy assassination. Lincoln in the Ford Theater, then of course Kennedy in a Ford Lincoln. Tupac chillingly predicted the exact age of his own death and said, "I know how I will die," before killing, claims his pal. So Tupac Shakur predicted how he would die and say he wouldn't live past 25, he told one of his friends. Well, he knew the character was going to be retired. And does anyone here know who Tupac is today? I don't care to draw attention to it. It just shows you, though, you can be at the peak. You can have millions of dollars in record sales, but you're still just a government employee if you're a crisis actor being used for some agenda, and you could be repurposed into a less exquisite gig. And that's what it looks like. It looks like he was downgraded into a lesser known group. See if anyone here knows. Eric Blair says it's still a gun grab agenda. Well, you do have the ghost gun thing. The gun grab agenda, though, is never ending. I don't even think it's about taking the guns. I think it's about the division in society. Kind of like with the vaxes. I don't think it's about saving. I think it's about the division. I think it's needles versus guns. It's a political schism, and they want to keep that. Because it's about, do you defend yourself? Do you have an immune system? Or does the government defend you? And does the government inject you with an immune system? It's all about your relationship to power. And so, in this case, they're making this prophet of doom. He correlates to the Riddler in the new Batman, a radical who goes online, prophet of doom, and is this unchecked force in society that we need to watch out for. Because all this conspiracy commentary is dangerous for society. They'll say we could have stopped him, we should have censored him. Deadbeat Daddy Minneapolis says Akil from Jurassic 5. That's correct, Akil the MC. And if you look at Akil the MC, look at him and the people around him, and you'll see Biggie Smalls and a couple of others thought to have died. New York shooting suspects ranting videos on YouTube are scary. Frank James, a suspect in the New York subway shooting, had his YouTube channel full of conspiracy commentary. Sounds scary. Let's go ahead and take a look at this one. I want to know what they feel is scary. Okay, it says here in one of the videos he said he was 63. Prophet of Truth 88. He discussed Will Smith's slap. He discussed the Supreme Court justice. And he talks about, oh, they deleted his channel. Look at this. This video is no longer available because the YouTube account has been terminated. Yeah, I considered downloading all the videos and uploading them onto Rumble just for archival purposes, maybe BitChute even. And I watched a lot of it, and honestly, he came off as an actor, not attached to any real ideology. It just seems like something a bunch of cops came up with. I don't think this is real. We know it's not real from the event, but I mean, I don't think this is an authentic character. His videos aren't influential. Nobody thought the Prophet of Doom was the Prophet of Doom. This is some kind of made-for-TV character. I mean, look at the name. Doesn't that sound like somebody the Batman would go after? COVID is a plot by the Pope to turn us into hybrids of Satan. And here is this guy grinning while he says it. And this is the new line going out there. We got to watch out because the QAnoners now believe that the serpent DNA is being added into people, and so now it's really more of the same. It's just a new twist. But this guy does the worst breakdown of the term corona and novel corona. New crown. You can see the predictive programming about the corona all around the place. And somehow he connects it to the Pope's hat and says somehow that novel corona means the Pope's serpent or something. I mean, it's nonsensical. But he does say that people who have taken the thing are now hybrids of Satan. So, on the one hand, he's talking about, no, this is real science, not their fake science. I'm talking about mRNA. And you say mRNA 5G, suddenly you're an authority to all the conspiracy theorists. So he's like, mRNA, black goo, 5G, Satan. And so you can't throw Satan into the mix. That's like saying that the devil causes climate change. You can't mix the two. Not only does it sound crazy, it's illogical. And yet, this is used to broad brush anybody who doesn't go lockstep with CNN. Iowa man babbles. God, this is so bad. Let's just do it. Let's listen to this. The new theory is that Putin is basically fighting the deep state, and he's destroying biolabs in Ukraine. The problem is I don't believe in these bioweapons. I don't believe in nukes. So I hear these stories, oh, he's going to nuke the world. I'm not scared. He's getting rid of the biolabs. I wasn't worried about biolabs. And then he's also going after the deep state and saving the children. This is another reoccurring story here, which is getting kind of old at this point. I don't know anyone who's actually saved any children from the QAnon crew. They talk a lot about saving children. But by now, a lot of those children are most likely Democrat voters. They've all grown up. So here's the exchange where the man says something about the real reason why Putin is fighting the war.
During warfare, is my understanding.
I think it's a little deeper than that.
Okay,
But,
so I can't go any deeper.
Okay,
than
if you can, that's fine.
it isn't that I know more than you know. It's just that I don't know anymore.
Okay, it's kind of low. The volume's low. But here's what he says.
But I think he's a very
He's just talking about how brave Putin is because they're fighting the pedovores and saving the children. More of the same. This story refuses to die. QAnon believing rallygoer says she's waiting for God or the aliens to rescue kids from the Democrats. Save the Children is back again. So here we have it. This is a woman at a Trump rally saying she's waiting for aliens or God, and she's welcoming the nuke that it might take. So they're looking at the nuke as a savior. And I saw some video that was suggesting that the way they faked the old nuke footage was just a time-lapse overexposed shot of a sunrise, which is kind of interesting because it ties into this sun cult and the sun savior slash destroyer. Anyway, listen to this.
I was watching an episode of Bill Maher, not the whole episode, but I saw a clip of it on YouTube, and he said Republicans are obsessed with pedophilia. And it's like, you mean stopping it?
Yeah, exactly.
Wait,
Ones with the adrenochrome.
Right. When the left talks about it, they're talking about it should be a sexual orientation, and they're pushing it on kids. And then they have
Ron DeSantis is a bad guy.
they have the nerve to be like, how dare you get mad at us doing this to kids?
Yeah, well, exactly. Yep, they're importing them from Mexico.
It makes no sense. But you know what? God sees all, and God will take care of all of this evil.
Yeah, now here it is again. So God is watching it all. So God is some ineffectual voyeur who's comfortable with another 4 years. Like, okay, so God gave us Trump. We can stop the elite from eating the babies. Well, now it's 4 years later, and yep, we're still trusting him. You're trusting him. He just let it go on for 4 more years. How many more babies have to be eaten before God steps in?
We're waiting for either God or the aliens.
God or the alien. That's the only thing that hasn't.
So God or the aliens. Doesn't matter. God, alien, nukes, somebody's going to save us.
We're waiting for either God or the aliens.
God or the alien. That's the only thing that hasn't been announced yet is the
Or a
alien.
nuke. I'll take one.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the rally.
Or a nuke. I'll take one.
Okay, so who laughs about a nuke but a religious extremist? And I've been saying for some time that this QAnon movement was engineered to be a replacement for the Quran radicals. So the Quran radical, violent extremists combating the great Satan have been replaced by the QAnon radicals combating the great Satan. And they'll take it all. They'll take anything at all, whether it's aliens, God, or nukes. How is that different from slamming planes into buildings to save the world from the great Satan? Fake as it is, these stories are the same. So the next 9/11 is going to come from the right, in my opinion. And she may not even be a plant. You know, these people are true believers in this great Satan framework, where it's basically America is controlled by a bunch of evil people at the top who need to be expelled from the world, which is no different from what the jihadis were about. The thing is different here, though, is that they believe that there are 269,000 to 500,000 indictments that have been sealed. So there's already 500 bad guys convicted, and they're waiting for the bloodbath. They're waiting for them all to be murdered on TV during an emergency broadcast where Trump, I guess it's going to be like a game show. He's going to come out and curate the military tribunals. President Trump, by the way, because he's still president according to this. Okay, Dr. Oz cheered for lockdowns. This is one of the reasons why it's problematic that he has been endorsed by Trump. That and his friend Marina Abramovich. Okay, here we go. Look, white nationalism resurgence continues to shift and shape Michigan and U.S. politics. So, as I've been saying, 2019 brought us the Joker movie, which showed a left-wing rebellion, communist revolution, burn the system down, build back better, typified by, I mean, really, this is the mask thing, the Antifa. But this is the Joker mask rebellion that you saw in the movie. And just like I was saying with Netflix and everything else, we have preparation for everything that happens on the world stage in the entertainment media. So now for the other side, Batman to come out, it would imply, in my estimate, that we will see something similar from the right. Bunch of controlled opposition, mob action, maybe terrorist attacks, but coming from the other side of the spectrum. So here we have it right on time. Batman movie just came out, and now it's white nationalism resurgence. They even arrested 3 white nationalist guys who were trying to, and this is probably staged, they're feds or whatever, but they were going to shoot 5G towers and try to start some kind of a power outage in the Northwest to kick off Helter Skelter. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hello, Tim.
Hey, what's up? What?
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. How are you doing this morning?
Yeah, this is Armoon.
Yes. What's up, Armoon? How are you doing today? We're talking about how the movies precede the reality, and the Batman movie corresponds to not only the Boston bombing and Joker, but now the Boston subway, well, the shooting in New York City here, and this character who is very similar to the Riddler, who's the Joker of this new movie.
Yeah. Yesterday I've even sent you on Discord. I don't know if you caught that there was another link that you could find regarding the 500 subs on the social media.
Yes, from Corinthians, and I read that.
Right.
I read it, and it talked about the resurrection, and I'm like, well, this is Holy Week too.
Yes, and note that his name is Frank James, so he appeared to James, and this is mentioned in that quote as well. And then to all the apostles, so James was first to see that. I think that may be significant to the script being presented as well.
Yeah, absolutely. With what I've been noticing here, you've got the movie parallels to the real events, and then there'll be some mythological basis for it. It might be biblical, it might be Greek, might be Roman. With this Hades thing, most recently with Pluto Returns on 222, I realized, well, Pluto's Hades. So all this talk about the Kraken being released, probably related to that date. Do you have any thoughts on that Pluto return timing of things? Because this shooter said America was born in violence and will die in violence. And Pluto returned to where it was in 1776.
Well, my view on that is, firstly, I know that this is sort of controversial, but we really don't know if Pluto returns or not, right? And what I'm trying to say is, sure, astrology is there and available in a certain format for us, but we don't really know if it corresponds to what is actually the time being kept, because this is more or less the power of caption, right? You can look at the night sky, and you're being told to caption this constellation, that constellation, what it does, what it means, whatever, right? But you don't actually know if there's even. You see a pattern in the movement, but you don't even know if that pattern is what has been presented, since all the edits to the knowledge that has occurred.
Right, like they said that Pluto return corresponded with the rising and falls of various empires. So they give us this historical account. So whether or not that's true, they set the stage that it was here 1776 July 4th, and it will return there on 2/22/2022.
Yeah, for sure they treat it as something that is important or holy for them. That's true. But it doesn't mean that it should be the same for us, or that we should read it the same way. In any case, regarding the Kraken, I did have a note from some time back when you were talking about it. Something that emerged and that may also add to your contemplation of that, which is if you consider, because you were talking about Kraken being cracks on the space station and on the system itself, right?
Yes.
And you can link that to the double slit experiment, so the double crack experiment, which is the script foundation of the fake science of quantum physics, which then leads to CERN, right? It links with CERN because CERN is the quantum physics central, let's say, right? And so all of this seems to be a way to make their script reality in our minds, not you and me, but in general, their scripted reality as the reality that we experience, like you say, the metaverse, right? So all the links must hold themselves and each other to create a whole false reality in our VR,
Right. Okay.
VR
So,
goggles.
like for example, it is all very subjective when we get down to it. There are patterns or templates, and they tell stories based on these things, but it doesn't mean these things have any objective merit. But the key for me though is that when we see that they're using this as a language, we can reverse engineer, and that's what I find useful. And about the split, the crack, this is another interesting thing too. Pluto or Hades carries a bident, which is a two-pronged spear, another split. And who was giving out the crack pipes? Whose son has the crack pipe addiction? Bident. And the name Bident and Biden are very similar as well.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So the idea is that it's like a liar. The problem with this is that when you have someone who is a compulsive liar, right? He will try to create a virtual reality where his lie it works and it fits, right? The issue with that is that he tries to so much to cover all the ends that he creates new loose ends where his lie can be seen, right? And that's why you and me and a lot of people in your channels and other channels can see, right? Because the loose ends become more and more, and it becomes more and more evident for a certain type of vision, let's say, or mind, to see it. But those who are involved with the liar, to them, everything fits, and if it doesn't fit, they will make it fit, right? They
Yes, they have a
will lie to themselves. They will self-deceive into no, this.
of this big deception is based on people going along with these unquestionable lies that have put them into a virtual reality, the world stage, and I equate it to being in a doomsday cult where you're artificially paranoid, artificially dependent on the group, and you're closed-minded to anybody outside the group, and the world is in a virtual reality. And you're right by describing it that way. Tell-lie vision. The TV screen is the basis for.
Yeah. I would like also to, if I can, give you another link to think about, which seems to also be in certain ways related to this. At a certain point, I think there was one of his rants. I didn't see it all. I just I realized the pattern and just move on. But
yes, that's sane, right?
That's why what you guys do is important to me, because you go really deep into all these details while I keep away. But in one of his rants, he talked about